So anyway, it is the size of that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like of various inspirations, kind of seeing a lot of podcasts kind of use those, like Shure, the SM, like those ones are like cylindrical.
Yeah.
That's
the
like
one.
Yeah, it's like pretty typical and common. But then I've seen ones where it's like the podcast is like comedians, you know, and you're just going like, oh, they're using like handheld mics, and you're going like, oh, that's kind of like their normal thing, you know. They're used to that. I'm going like, well, I've got I've got these guys. It's like those other ones that they use that are like not to say Canon because it reminds me of this like large cylindrical on like a pivoting mount. Those are like $300. I'm like, okay, well, if I want two microphones, like there's $600.
Are those
like,
USB or those mics? Those Shure ones that you're talking about?
I think they're XLR. I think they have like, you know, it's just
I feel
standard.
like I've like looked at the back of those whenever I see those in podcasts. I'm always like confused, like what's going on in the back of those?
I think it's like
without actually looking it up.
yeah, I think there's like switches on there, like slider switches
Oh,
for
is that
like
what's going on in the
roll
back?
off. You know, you can roll off like
okay.
low end or something, or just have
Okay.
flat response.
And that plug must be like maybe on a side. I don't think it's really directly in the back of those.
Yeah, it's like a little cable that goes. It's almost like has a smaller little cable that feeds into it, I think, and then it's like halfway like integrated with its mount. But yeah, I mean, like that amongst like several other things, like when we were just talking a moment ago about having like someone that you'd like call to like you know, edit that out, where it's like there's like a handful of things I feel like that could prevent me from committing and even doing this project, you know, where it was like, well, I don't have that and I don't have this, and it's like, so I'm just like kind of like just trying to like dive into it and making it as like simple as possible, and thus using half of what I already have.
We just got to do it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, the you know, just like equipment and stuff. Like you're like, oh well, if I want those nice mics that all the other podcasters use, you know, like there's like $600, and if I want
but
multiple cameras, you know, you're like, how much money you want to wrap up into gear?
Yeah, but rarely you always see that growth.
Yeah.
A lot. Even if you like jump in episode whatever, you like it enough. You click back far enough and you're just like, humble beginnings for most of them.
Yeah.
And then the ones that don't either are coming from somewhere else a lot of times. Like, oh, this is another thing they're doing. Yeah, this is like episode 1, but you're not coming from another thing. This is from the ground floor of this idea.
Yeah.
So, shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, after like, I guess like, I was kind of wondering too about how it would work with like how, like, would I even be able to like watch these like completely all the way through, you know, after capturing them, or would it be one of those things where it's almost like hard for me to even sit there and listen to specifically hearing my own voice for like that duration? And then I started getting like self-conscious as being like, one of the things that could like crash this is just me not liking my voice.
Yes, I have always sort of assumed that is why everybody has editors and producers. I don't think it's an expertise thing at all.
It's like a self-conscious.
You know where all of those things are. Anybody can. I don't want to say anybody can do that. That's out of pocket. But I really do genuinely believe that there is a self-conscious element of like, I'm just going to put this in somebody else's hands. I may not even watch the final product if they're professional enough that I trust them to put the things in the right places. A lot of times you just got to put your faith in their hands because you'll burn out on your own voice.
Yeah, like even the managing of it, like putting it online and having those sort of interactions where it's almost like, gosh, I don't even want to like read comments. I almost just think that like I'm too like nervous to even think about like, well, sure. I mean, when you're so small and like over the years, the stuff I put on the internet, you know, typically any sort of traffic I get, it's someone being like kind and giving praise. But like, I feel like the more, you know, if you get more traffic, it increases the odds of like someone chiming in with like a criticism or something mean or whatever. And then you're like, I know I would be crippled for like 2 days minimum on that thought of just like, he said that I sounded like this, and it's like, he's right or she's right or something. And you're just like, I don't know. Like part of me is like, I almost feel like putting it onto YouTube would just be like set it and forget it, and just like put it there, but try not to get caught up into the, like, I know it sort of goes against the grain where it's like you're supposed to like comment back and, you know, interact, and the more
The
of all
algorithm.
yeah, and do all that, and it helps you with it, but it's almost like I don't even care about that. Like, this for me is like just the process alone is what I really want out of it, where it's like, if I continue to do this, I'm excited at what could potentially grow from like development of the idea and like interacting with my creative entourage of friends in the network.
I feel like the criticism is only if people get personal. I think that even negative criticism is something that you would view as even funny. I would hope.
Yeah.
I really feel like any of that type of stuff. I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but as long as criticism doesn't get personal, then I'm game for any of it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind the idea of like, oh, you know, the blah 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 looks like this, whatever. It's maybe, if they go to like, oh, voice tone or something, maybe those like weird things you're like,
I can't do anything about my voice.
you're super self-conscious about, all
Yeah.
your deep fear, super self-conscious things. Maybe as long as they don't tick those boxes, you'd be all right.
Someone says you look like somebody else, and now you never even thought about that, and now you like
You just
yeah.
every time you just see that.
Yeah, and you're going like, damn it. It's like, you know, but you know,
We have to stop playing that game. That's you have to stop playing the you look like. It never goes right. It never goes well for anybody.
I'm very much in tune with like, if I think someone looks like somebody, I will not tell them that, because it's like anytime someone said that to me, it just seems like I don't get all offended, but I can see why it's almost like I don't want to tell someone that they look like somebody else. And if I even had the comfort to even bullshit with them, that it would be like that they look like them. You know, almost like giving like that person's copying you, versus telling them like you just look like you're like some, you know, dollar store version of like some popular hockey player or something. I've gotten like there's this one dude that's like, I think he's in Capitals, and it's like
You've gotten Ovechkin.
Yeah.
I've been with you when you've gotten that.
Yeah. Or like a guy brings up a game, and I'm just like confused at first, and then I'm like, oh yeah, the Ovechkin, and
I always just assume that people have already heard it, and I just don't want to pile on. Like, I work in public, and I see a lot of credit cards and IDs, and a lot of times you'll see names, and it's real obvious where that name came from. So like, part of you wants to comment on it, and the other part of you is like, they've been hearing this their entire life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even gonna blink. I'm just gonna say the name out loud or whatever I gotta do, and just like move past it and save that conversation. I used to bring it up all the time, and 2 minutes in, 9 times out of 10, I'm going, oh, mistake. like you can like, oh, this conversation I'm a little more enthusiastic about, like, oh, I know where, or whatever. Like, oh, I get the reference, or is that a family name, or whatever however you approach that. So I don't even bring up the name thing, and then learned a long time ago, at least for me, like, you've never gotten anybody that is a compliment that is somebody that you look like. It's never a compliment.
Yeah,
Even
like,
when people mean well, I can't say never, but it rarely ever goes the way you want it to for you. Not you personally, but for me. So I don't know. I feel like you got to stop doing that. Got to stop with the you know who you look like thing.
I remember when I was like a kid, like real little, probably like single digit age, and like seeing something or watching television, and like seeing like Sylvester Stallone, and just being like thinking like one of my uncles kind of looked like him, and I remember like saying out loud that I was like, I should tell him, or like, you know, acknowledge that to him in some way. And, like, my mom was here, and she like suggested that I not do that.
Exactly.
And I just was like, why? I mean, it's like, I'm saying it looks like Sylvester Stallone. That's cool. And it's like, for some reason, I guess I shouldn't. And it planted this like thing of like, maybe people don't want to be related, even if you think that person's cool, or, you know, or
sure.
Just like, you know, I wasn't like thought he was Stallone's handsome, but I was just going like, he's just like this portrayed as like some tough guy or something. Like, wow, that'd be not cool to be related to that. But it could also be like more deeper, where like maybe my mom said that because she's seen like people make that, and it's like, you know, kind of annoying to be, you know, like, yeah, I know I look like this person or something.
Yeah.
Or like, what is it about them, that they would want to make that correlation? Is it,
Imagine being told that you look like Sylvester Stallone. Like, imagine like you would look long and hard at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like literally looking in the mirror to figure out what is it about me that screams Sly to this person.
Yeah. Now I was like, too.
Specifically Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I was probably like, 6 or 7 or something like that. So,
Yeah, well.
interesting. Where like now I just, have a lot more. Well, I'll never forget that memory, but I don't know. Just like when you're a kid, I feel like, kids say the darndest things. So you're like less filtered and like
Sure.
you're just like kind of open to your wild.
At the end of the day, he's self-conscious about it because it's probably some truth in it, is what it boils down to. Is that you're just an unfiltered kid just speaking truth. And we just don't want to hear it. That's all. They're right. You're right. The 6-year-old version of you was right. If he looked like Sylvester Stallone, he did. It's just he was aware of it, and you probably shouldn't tell him.
The mind of a kid, where the things that you're cooking up in your mind and perspective on the world, and just how delicate, like just like a comment or something from like a parent or an adult is, and how long that can affect. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you don't think like that. You're not thinking you could like leave an impression on an adult. You're just like running off at like what is that, like stream of thought almost. But when you're an adult, it's like you can remember that they always said that or something. And with having kids, I feel like I have to watch what I say that they may repeat, and you're just going like, yeah, it may be out of context, and it could make me look real bad, because like where would they come up with saying that? It's like probably in their home environment or something. And if it's anything that's not like, it could be like criticizing, or it could be like, just something that could be taken the wrong way, and you're just going like, oh man, like they don't understand it. They're just repeating what they heard or whatever. Like referring to something, like what was it the other day? Like, so there was like a dog or something on television, and I wasn't around, but like I think that the dog's name was Scout. Like, oh, that dog's name's Scout too, and like I refer to that as being like. Yeah, because that name's like pretty trendy, right now. It's like a trending name for dogs, I guess. That's just my impression. I was just like, oh, I heard it in a commercial. And it's like, I know someone that has a dog named that. So they're just going like, it's a popular name right now. And I was like, and
it must be like a Game of Thrones reference or something I don't understand. That's what I assume. If there's like a word out there and people have used it more than twice right now and I don't understand it, I'm like, oh, it must be Game of Thrones related. I don't know why. I just default to that.
Yeah, like just something large and cultural that like I'm pretty
that I'm blind to. Yeah. Oh, is this Handmaid's Tale you're talking? I don't know.
And I was like kind of like half just being like wanting to tell him like don't say to anyone I said that was trendy, because it's like I don't want that to be taken out of context, like I was being criticizing or something.
Oh, you have it on that level of like I don't want to be like exposed as the guy that knows that the name Scout is a trendy name.
Yeah. I was just like, but I'm like,
now I want to get to the bottom of it. Now I kind of want to know why Scout.
I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like names are one of those things where it's really weird. Like when, like maybe just like a car, like when you get a car, now you see that car everywhere. But then it's like, when you hear a name in a television commercial, it feels like anything in a commercial is very intentional. It's like demographic focused and stuff like that. And so like, they're not just like pulling names out of a hat, probably, you think that there's like half like, some intention as to what they would be choosing. Yeah. Like the actors or actresses and the names and environments and stuff. And it's like kind of gross watching commercials where you're just going like, this is obviously for this particular demographic. Like, and you just feel like it's strange when you recognize and you're like not the demographic, and it just makes you feel like, why am I watching television? It's meant for like nursing home patients or something. Like there's been times like what was it, like I don't know, I think it was it was this summer, got like COVID, and I was down on the shore, and down there it was like we had antenna television, and it's like I started getting the symptoms. I'm getting like fever like and just like all tired and like, so like I'm just kind of like laying around, and we're like kind of like wrapping up with being there on that weekend or weekday, and TV's playing like all these westerns, like in the middle of the day, and it just reminds you of like
a little gun smoke.
Yeah, and like Big Valley and there's other ones, but like Bonanza or something,
of course.
And yeah, like you're watching like all the commercials in between are like white-haired people and like all these like kind of things. You're just going like, yeah, who's going to fall for that besides
The Bonanza crowd is.
80-year-old, yeah, and
The Me TV crowd is.
this is the stuff that you see like on televisions in the rooms of residents and like at nursing homes and stuff, and you're just going like, I like. But now here I am watching, going like, "Oh, this is a good story here. I like this story."
And a
here.
captured audience.
Yeah.
They're not moving off that channel.
Yeah, exactly. They're
It's just a
sitting there
captured audience. They
planted.
They can just play with their minds and any manipulation through whatever they want. It's great.
But yeah, just going back to how that stuff's all like intentional, because they wouldn't have a commercial for. Like that, they have commercials for like smartphones, and they're like, what are they called? Like jitterbugs or something, where it's like a phone that's made. I think it's jitterbug, where it's like a phone that's made for like someone who's like sort of, doesn't want all this complication with the modern. Technology where it's like big screen, big buttons, just
large
simple,
text,
real simple options.
Got it.
There's a button that you hit almost like emergency. You just hit this button and you'll get right to a person to help you.
Just yell at the phone. Just yell in its general direction. It'll do what you want.
It's like that wouldn't be applicable to see on a channel that's
they're not selling those people.
20-year-olds are watching it.
They're not selling sugary cereals on BTV probably.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember like. Growing up and just like how much like it's kind of like you don't think of it when you're in that position, but like just how laden the the commercials were when you're a kid for like just like the toys, the cereals, the foods, and like I watch it now as like when I was a kid I was just going like, yeah, it's just like things or whatever, this is normal. And then I watch it now as an adult, you're going like, this stuff is like really extreme or whatever.
Oh, it's pretty transparent too.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely like you don't need to be.
It's not that exciting when you get the actual toy, or like it doesn't. It's not that exciting when you taste that thing that you get to make or whatever that's edible or whatever, or just like that sugar. That cereal's like 80% sugar, and it's like kind of like I'm not super uptight about my kids eating sugar. They did such a good
job, though.
But yeah, those commercials, you're just going like, no wonder a kid would want to eat that.
Yeah.
It looks like so exciting and fun.
It's so
colorful,
and it's like it's 3-dimensional. It's not even just that. It's not just you get the fun, colorful commercial and stuff, but you also get all of the promise of recreating that yourself. You many times get a jingle that is now like known. Still better than most songs in your head.
I just saw one on a Perfection. Remember that game? I can't even hum the jingle, but like I was just recently getting things set up in the new living space. Got the computer set up in the living room on the television, and I was like, oh, so we can watch YouTube down here, and then like trying to put on some entertainment for like the little ones, that I could just kind of like let roll for a bit. And I was like, oh, like Cartoon Network, like a 5-hour block of Saturday morning cartoons or something. Let's go with this, let's see what that's about. And the commercial for Perfection comes on. I'm like, I couldn't hum that for you before I saw this commercial, but I remember that so much. I was like, that's a good little jingle.
Oh yeah, they were
stuck in your head.
All of the jingles and theme songs from those eras are like Hall of Fame worthy. There should be a way to
Mr. Bucket.
There should be a way to what do I want to say? There needs to be like a Hall of Fame. There needs to be a way to like raise these things up as like culturally significant.
Like there should be a playlist on Spotify, but I'm sure with licensing and copyright stuff.
Oh, I bet you that is a muddy. But there needs to be. I feel like there should be an official like wing of some sort of museum that is dedicated to the 30-second art form that is like a commercial, that it worked on so many levels. And you had like better than a song, better than other things that are similar. The commercial had like direct results.
Yeah.
You could see sort of the fruits of your labor paying off in a way of just like
sales of the product, or hey, they're still using this commercial 10 years later, or probably not 10 years in the 90s. They probably churned through them, but still like I guess you would get that with like music and stuff like that. But it's so many
there's so many, like I said, it's like 3D. So many things had to work. You had to have the right kids having the right amount of fun with the right toy, filmed by the right person with the right jingle. And they somehow many times got that right, to the point where we're 25 years later and you just reference Mr. Bucket and I knew exactly.
Yeah. Balls pop out of my mouth.
Or Crossfire. You just say a word.
Yeah.
You just have to say the word. You don't even have to play a clip or anything.
Exciting, intense angles and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like maybe like a cliche thing where you know, a person thinks that their generation of whatever was like the best or whatever, but I do it a lot where I'm just kind of like, I kind of question like, well, you think like the 90s could have been like the peak for like kids products, jingles, commercials, you know, like almost like you'd be like, man, we grew up in the era where that stuff was like prime, because like by the 2000s it was like they were just trying to be as good as the stuff that they did in the 90s, and at this point I'm just so disconnected from commercial television. I feel like cable television and where that stuff was the cream at is like that's deteriorated now, where it's all just like streaming and the ads, you can skip them, and it just seemed like it's different now.
It is, and I think that I think about this stuff all the time, and I'll just lump it into sort of the same thoughts I have with so much other things that are sort of cultural like that. And that is all of that stuff. I don't want to say it was better then, but it existed in the pre-internet world. To go back to that, it existed in a place where those things had to hit, had to be good. The jingles had to be catchy enough because you just couldn't see them again. You saw them on TV and stuff, but it had to like bore itself into your brain more. There was more of a mystery. There was more of kids going and talking about it and being exposed to it, because I always say that the internet is like this. I was compared to an iceberg, or the world is like, or the internet, I guess, is. No, I guess it is the world as an iceberg. And we only had the little tip. We only had the tip of the iceberg pre-internet. And we were all exposed to that same amount of stuff, right? Like there was only so many channels on TV.
Yeah.
And we
you remember the channel numbers because everyone else had the same channel numbers, you know, where you're just going like, you know, and like, it's like kids were probably watching just like these certain channels they bounce around between.
Same with adults.
You probably saw the same commercial at the same time of day. If you know, like, and you just go to school, maybe you didn't, you know, you don't even know it, but like you're all on the same like programming almost.
Yeah.
You know?
So we were on the same tip of that iceberg for the longest time, being exposed to the same music, the same movies and stuff. And that's how your grandmother would know who the most popular basketball player was still, is because we were all still just being exposed to all the same stuff. Right. And then the internet comes, and then we see that was just the tip of the iceberg, and there's more of it. And it's so much more of it under the surface. And now you can just get lost in that. Right. So everything can have its lane. You can find your thing. You can be blind to everything else. Grandma doesn't have to know who the popular basketball player is anymore. She's not being exposed to it anymore, because all of those people are in their lanes now. More so than any other time. So all of those ads,
they got their jitterbug giving them the news that they want to see instead of like having be exposed to like Michael Jordan hawking like
exactly because you're still watching the same
television.
3 channels. You were still watching the same 3 networks forever. So when you would see that one ad, it's aimed at a certain person, but everybody saw it. So you knew all of pop culture whether you liked it or not. Like you knew even if you weren't a Madonna fan or a Michael Jackson fan or U2,
Cal Ripken Jr.
or any of these people, like you knew culturally who they were, because you're like, oh well, those are the videos that play between my favorite videos.
Yeah.
Because I have to watch them. I have to sit there and watch them. Now you can cut the fat. Now I can just go pull up the one thing I want, and I don't have to be forced to watch any of this other stuff. Therefore, I don't have to know who any of these people are. I can like look at the schedule of SNL now of hosts and musical guests and go, huh?
Yeah.
And just shrug and just go like, not in like and I'm not saying that like that I personally do that, because I still try to keep up with that stuff. I'm saying that like people now can do that. You can now look at that stuff and go like, oh, not for me. Don't know who any of that stuff is. Like, I can just continue like liking my things, and I can look up my thing and be exposed to my thing for good or bad. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good thing. That's how it is. It's just everybody has their lanes. You can now have your kink. You can now have your thing that you pay attention to and hyper focus on, and find other people that it's their kink and they're hyper focused on, and you can have a community now, and you can keep your blinders on and not pay attention to any of those other communities.
This reminds me of so when I was driving here, I thought about something. I was like, oh, I should talk about this with the doing this the recording, and that so like you know, it's what is today, the 29th or 20.
Yes, 29.
Yeah, so October 29th, Halloween's right around the corner. So you see, you know, people are decorating for Halloween, and I don't know, like I've kind of been like not really into it for quite a few years, and like I just have no enthusiasm for personal investment into it, or like have a costume I want to wear, or even to have desire to be going to any kind of social thing. And you know, maybe just like the chapter in life I'm in or whatever, but you know, I kind of almost like, you know, like look at things with resentment or something, where I'm going like, you know, I look at things and I just have like a connection of memories. Like you see like people like decorating like really extensively, and you just think about like you know, like the energy that must take, and going like, I have no energy or desire to do that. But then I started noticing driving through Hanover, just the sort of styles of the way people decorated, and it just made me think like, it just seemed like we were talking about earlier of like how you look at something, you can see the demographic that it associates with. And like, I think about like people who, you know, you've been told like, oh, they really get into decorating for Halloween. I feel like in the past, I had the impression like being told like, you know, like your mom would like really like would decorate or really get into it, and like I don't know, or, you know, what that looked like, but you know, could imagine like ways that you could decorate that it would look like Halloween with things. But like when I was driving through Hanover today, I would just see a lot of these like trademarked like things that were like, that's stuff from when I was a kid. So I bet you the adults in that house are like my age group, give or take 5 years or something. But like, you're like, I don't know, I feel like when I think about someone like, I think about your mom, the way she would have decorated, it's like, I doubt your mom was decorating with a whole bunch of like trademark, like copyrighted type like things from her childhood, you know, to decorate for the Halloween thing. It was more like things that are like an arm coming out of the ground, or like fake spider webs,
Sure,
or like cats, black cats.
Sure. No, she's more of a traditionalist.
Yeah, and then you'll see like you know, like the examples. I was like Hocus Pocus and like Nightmare Before, not Nightmare Before Elm Street, but
Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas, and Addams Family, and like just these things that you're just going like, yeah, I bet a 55 or 6-year-old is more than likely not the one that bought this. I bet that's someone who that's what they were exposed to as a kid, and now they go out and they're going like, oh, I like that, I'm going to buy that and decorate with that. And I'm just like, it's sort of like weird to think of that being different than like our parents' generation. If they were enthusiastic enough to decorate, that they wouldn't have been being sold or had those sort of those like you know, type of like trademark, these things where it's like, it just makes me just think about like companies capitalizing on like nostalgia of a generation, and it's like almost like you're just like putting a flag out of I like this movie. That movie's awesome, and it's like you could tell because I've got inflatables in my front yard of it.
Yeah. No, you weren't
indoctrinating your children into like that stuff too. You're just being like, oh, we're watching Addams Family for the 5th time this season, you know.
You're gonna like Addams Family.
Yeah, you're gonna like it. It's like you like Nightmare Before Christmas because I loved it.
You see a lot. Well, the part of that though, it's interesting because I feel like pop culture has slowed down because of being able to be in your lane. You can stay in your lane and find these communities, and that can stretch out a fandom for longer than it ever has before, to the point where the stuff that parents liked is still popular too. Now, that's also a blending of what you were talking about of them just never letting it go away.
Yeah.
But because they never let it go away, there are still things from 20 years ago, 25, 30, 40 years ago that are still out there that are there is Ninja Turtles that are being marketed at kids still. And there are there's Adam's Family. That is, I mean, Adam's Family is older than that, but all of this stuff is still there, and it's some of the same stuff. Like, I feel like if I turned on things that are aimed for a certain age of kid right now, I would still recognize a lot of the properties. It still feels like, oh, a lot of those Nickelodeon properties have been around now. They're still using some of these things, or Cartoon Network properties, or whatever. Like, they've all slowed down. I wish I could come up with more specific examples than the Ninja Turtles, but that's the one that's always in the front of my brain, that it just never sort of went away. Like, the way that it was like, I think it's wild. Okay, here's what I'm trying to say is, I'll use Ninja Turtles as an exact example. So that was like 84, but I don't think it, like, the cartoon and stuff didn't show up until like 87 or whatever. So let's just roughly say 30 years, 35 years of Ninja Turtles, right? So if you were to take, let's just say 30, we'll go conservative and say 30 years of Ninja Turtles in pop culture. So if you were to take 30 years from 1987, that's 1957. Imagine anything in 1987 being popular that was popular in 1957 on that same level.
Yeah, not on the same level. I mean, I could think of like Gumby or something, you know?
Like Howdy Doody.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about Howdy Doody in the late 80s.
Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, none of that stuff. Like, it aged, you know, and it all of that
Had
stuff
its
continued
seasons,
aging.
and then it was like outdated and then replaced with like newer stuff.
No, now something can show up and just like hang around, even for something that didn't exist for a very long period of time. It can just be rebooted, sequelized,
Computerized. It's like 3D now. The modern version of Scooby Doo or whatever.
Yeah, Scooby Doo never goes away. There's a new Chip and Dale movie, which is again 35 years old for that style of Chip and Dale's older than that. But like, just things that just like, oh, these things just, they don't go away, or they're licenses that are recognizable names. They understand that millennials right now are just like buying nostalgia like you would not believe.
Yeah, like I'm like the Halloween decorations. You're like, it's probably a millennial.
It is.
That's
There's still a South Park. You still see South Park stuff pop up in pop culture, and you're just like, that burned into a certain age group's brain and has never really left our age group's brain, and never really left. They're still doing that stuff, and it still seems popular. I checked out years ago. That's sort of another thing about it, is that you can sort of check out and it just continues moving. And it's not like other things, by the time most of people check out, they just go away. Stuff just would check out and other people would check in. They would check out, check in, and it became generational that we now have the 800 Simpsons episodes.
I was just thinking Simpsons. I was like, dude, we played the Simpsons, them Halloween's specials for the kids the other day, and it was almost like, I feel like I was a little bit more of like a moth around the screen. Like, I'm like busy working, doing stuff, but I'm like, oh, this is a good one. This is the one that we read the Poe story, and like the kids are like, you know, just like kind of like, man, it's like, I don't know, like if the kids are appreciating it as much as I am, but this is awesome. You know?
I saw the one where Bart sells his soul the other day.
Yeah.
And I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times since. I have it on tape. One of those little Simpsons scary tapes.
Oh, yeah.
A little box of scary tapes.
Of the green.
Yeah. There's 3 of them. Come to find out, that is the complete set. I kept thinking that I only had, like, since it has Homer, Marge, and Bart, I believe, on the covers of them, I thought that I was missing some. I just assumed that there must have been a Lisa and a Maggie, like a 5-part or whatever. No, it's a complete set of 3.
Are they like chronological type?
So they're not the Treehouse of Horror exactly.
Yeah, see, the title says Trick or Treehouse. Yeah,
so it's got just scary. Like the him selling his soul isn't a Treehouse of Horror. It's just
not the whole episode.
It's like the scarier. It's the episodes that weren't the Treehouse of Horror episodes that were sort of horror leaning. So it has Bart sells his soul, and one of the sideshow Bob comes back to kill Bart. The Cape Fear.
He's like riding underneath of the train or something.
Yeah. So it's like those episodes, like the more thriller episodes, but it has the Bart Sells a Soul, which I have watched a couple times, and I believe it gets a little heavy-handed at some points. Anytime you're talking souls, it can get a little heavy-handed with maybe some religious imagery. I don't know. They don't necessarily go there. I wouldn't expect The Simpsons to. But there are some times where I'm just like, I feel like they'd approach this differently today.
Yeah.
Than they did, even though I think it's a flawless episode. It's perfect. The Bart sells his soul is a great A plot. The B plot is Mo turning Moe's into like a family restaurant.
Yeah.
Moe's family feed bag or whatever it was called. So it's got that great, subplot in there, which like fleshes the episode out perfectly.
I know some of those
Great
things
episode.
have like references that when I was watching as a kid, I wasn't understanding the reference, but now I watch it as a kid or an adult and go like, oh, like that's like they're mocking like a Twilight Zone,
Oh,
or
yeah.
that's like a Twilight Zone story, or. Well, I mean, as a kid, I guess I knew that it was like, maybe I didn't even know. I just kind of maybe Edgar Allan Poe, like the the Raven or whatever, and like sort of like got those references. But it's interesting, I haven't had any major kicks where I've indulged in watching a lot of old Simpsons, but I imagine if I watch it, I'd probably pick up on things. I was like, that went over my head as a kid.
Repeated view. It's like almost designed for repeated viewing.
Yeah.
It's almost the shame is that they've done 800 episodes that it now feels like this like unpenetrable monolith.
Yeah, like where do I start? When am I going to do that? When am I going to make it like a mission?
I know the characters. I know the town. I know these characters better than many fictitious characters. And I only paid attention for what is now 20% of the show. And yet it still feels overwhelming to me to be like, I don't know where to like start or restart. I'm not going to start back at the beginning because I don't have that kind of time.
I bet there's enough episodes in there to like take you through so many different emotions. Like I bet you there's out of 800, like how many of those, if you watch as an adult, would probably make you get a little wispy. You're just watching, just going like, dude, that was like a really good one, man. Like they really like tapped into some shit right there,
Do you have any that come to mind as favorites? Do you have any that if you had on tape, you'd rewatch them a couple times?
Yeah, let me I can think of just like scenes or something, and it's like it's so hard. I mean, I could sit here and just go a whole bunch, but right off the bat, I'm thinking there was like one scene where like Homer and like a shotgun and like makeup. And,
that makeup shotgun.
It just puts it on and just made like Marge, or put it on the wall, or just the way it was just like.
I think he goes to shoot Marge in the face with it, and she pushes it away, and I think it shoots like an image of like a makeup face splattered on the wall.
Like what a horrible idea, and just how it just kind of like just as a kid, just being able to just like be chuckling and like just like clenching your stomach and just laughing out loud, just an authentic, being entertained by just like the ridiculousness of it. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of weird. I'll think of The Simpsons from time to time, of just sort of too with Homer, with like the family where he's got the older son, he's got 3 children. Having the older son,
you mean being able to relate,
and just being like, "Am I Homer?" And I'm like, the way that Homer is portrayed,
and look how it is like, look at how it's infiltrated you subconsciously as well with your yellow and blue shirt.
I know,
yellow and blue.
Yeah. Oh my god,
it's in deep.
It's like I think like too.
It's
like,
burned in. It's like we were talking earlier. It's just burned into an entire generation.
He's
It'll
like
never go away.
He's dopey or whatever, but at the same time, there's plenty of episodes that like, like through his humility, kind of showed like a good character.
Oh yeah,
too,
yeah,
where
yeah.
it'd be like, it's not like I have any. I have no qualms with being even compared to that character, because it's like sometimes like dads can be perceived as being like the buffoon in the bunch or whatever,
especially by television.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it's kind of like I don't know about that, but I'm like at the end of the day, it's like there's just you can get away with making the dad the punching bag or the buffoon
it sells,
in the group,
and has for 60 years.
But like in some case, I think how it's like there's been examples where like I feel like Homer, where like they do it in a way where it doesn't completely just like shit on the dad or something.
No. Homer, they do a good job with Homer as sort of the like. A lot of times, he is the viewer surrogate. That you're supposed to watch the episode through him and learn the lesson that he's learning.
Yeah.
a lot of times. I imagine that that's what they're trying, because they do such a great job at tying that up in a nice little neat bow at the end a lot of times of whatever.
Wasn't the first episode like a Christmas episode?
Yeah, I think it starts
with Santa's Little Helper, and it
yeah, I think
shows,
it starts early on with that too. Yeah, like maybe even the first episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're supposed to learn. I think he is supposed to be the dopey. I'll make a comparison, even though I enjoy both of these. The comparison I want to make is to Married with Children, except he doesn't learn the lesson.
Yeah.
He just stays
an anti-hero.
Yeah, he just stays there the whole time where Homer goes through all of those same trials and tribulations. And then oftentimes, I mean, not to say that he ever becomes smart or anything, but he at least by the end of the 23 minutes, I have learned a lesson.
Yeah.
Maybe he hasn't exactly, but through him, I have learned the lesson. Then again, I guess I've learned the lesson through Al Bundy as well. I get to see the consequences of maybe not learning the lesson.
Yeah, that's a show I watched a lot as a kid too.
A lot of Fox.
Yeah. A lot
Again,
of just like hour-long
the
blocks,
Fourth Network.
back-to-back episodes of some show, and just like sometimes just watching television where it was like daylight out, and all of a sudden like you never turn the lights on and you're still watching television. It's all like dark around you, and you're just like, man, I've just like crushed a bunch of television.
Fox was the Fourth Network.
Yeah.
I think the only one that launched during our life. Well, the first big major one to launch during our life.
I think it was like maybe the last time we hung out where we kind of talked about it, where it was like you were mentioning it in that context, and it was like, oh yeah, and it really was hitting me just like how they kind of came out and how they were like hitting hard with like shows that were kind of like,
oh yeah, they had the edgy.
Yeah,
they had the edgy. They had The Simpsons, and Tracy Ullman, and Married with Children, and In Living Color.
Yeah,
I think was there too. So yeah, they were swinging for that demographic, and they hit it. I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of it. Maybe I shouldn't say it like that. Not that I wasn't not allowed to watch it. I was not allowed to be in charge of the TV, and my parents were not watching it. So it's not that I was not allowed to watch it. It was not what my parents were watching. Therefore, I was not watching it. Since we only had the one TV, I had no TV of my own during those years, so I was forced to watch, a lot of footage of the Persian Gulf War. Is my like childhood memory of TV.
What's going on?
Of watching TV with my parents, I should say, not my
old
own.
News anchors just like talking sadly about things.
Yeah,
serious stuff.
A lot of just tuning in and seeing where it was. A lot of just Saddam Hussein and George Bush footage burned into my brain between like trailers for. I distinctively remember the trailer for like Terminator 2 being like this like what is going on moment of my life. Probably on Fox, probably during The Simpsons or during sports.
What do you think would be the consequences long term of like modern youth being exposed to like this sort of streaming access to content, television, we'll just call it, but it's like it could be on a tablet or on a big screen or something. But like I oftentimes think about like so like when I was living on the shore and not having like a regular television setup thing with like satellite or cable, and the internet connection was kind of weak, so there was a lot of like DVDs, and so like you'd get a DVD and it would be like play all, and then like they would like just see like several episodes back to back.
Sure.
And it's like I kind of can see how like with streaming, it can kind of provide the same sort of binging on stuff where I oftentimes just go like kind of conflicted with that, where I'm going like, as a kid it would always like best maybe 2 episodes back to back on an hour block, but for the most part cartoons were just like they just kept flip-flop into this and they would go to that, and you get all this diversity where like if you really liked a cartoon you only got it in like that 30-minute block, and it had like 2 or 3 interruptions with commercials, and you only got in these little small blips, and you had to like the attention span would float away when a commercial would come on, but now the cartoon's back on, you're on it, and then it would end, and you're like, you really like that cartoon, and you might be able to catch it a few times that week,
Sure.
if it's like a rotation. But it's kind of like weird to think about like the effects, the possible effects on like on like kids' minds where they're exposed to things like in the binge level where they could stream something and just be like, yeah, I'll watch another episode, you know?
So
I'd watch a whole season. I wouldn't let them do that, but I mean, sometimes you just put a DVD on and it would just like roll until that DVD's over with, and that was like, you know, it could have been a period of time. I'm not saying like I'm putting my kids in front of the television just being like, you're watching an hour and a half of Magic School Bus, but like, you put something on, and if they do like it, you know, and they're paying attention to it, they'll get like 2 or 3 episodes in.
Sure.
And there's no commercials, but that's even more like a concentration, you know. And it's like, yeah, I kind of like wonder if that's like maybe the detriments of that stuff. And I'm like, well, I try not to like get worried about it, but because they're not watching like a shitload of commercials for products that they don't need. But
I think I think all that stuff's case by case. I say all of this stuff as a non-parent, by the way. So my entire point of view of all of this stuff is different. I try to stay positive with a lot of this stuff because I really do I am really the toothpaste is out of the tube type guy that like culture is moving in a way. And who am I to complain about its direction in any way? I'm not going to keep pushing that boulder up that hill. You know what I mean? For it just to keep it's rolling down that hill, right? So my point of view with a lot of this stuff is always like I don't see the negative side of it because I'm not a parent. I don't see the negative. I can understand what it is. I don't physically see it because I haven't had exposure to it, I guess is what I'm saying. But I try to stay optimistic about all this stuff in that all of this stuff is just a slightly different version of all the stuff that we have always had. Maybe it's on steroids now. But it is a slightly different version of the same amount of crap being thrown out there, right? Staying in your lane, you're able to. What am I trying to say? The long way around what I'm trying to say, or the short way around what I'm trying to say, is this stuff is breeding future content creators and future artists and that stuff. And I try to focus on that. I try to focus on the positive of all of this stuff being exposed to the right people. I don't get hung up on it being, it just sounds terrible. I don't get hung up on it being exposed to a whole generation of kids because I'm not looking at it as a generational thing. I'm looking at it more as like, what kids are going to grab this stuff and what are they going to do with it? Yeah. They now have the ability to grab whatever they want and do whatever they want with it. What are they going to do with it? Like, I have a prediction that a video game is going to win an Academy Award, and it's not going to be that far off. It's that video games are going to have to be taken seriously as a storytelling genre by the higher powers at some point real soon, right? They have the best ability to tell a story, really. It's interactive. It's got acting. It's got all of the stuff that the best movies and music and television has, except it has an interactive element. Yeah. Right? It's got you as the character. I don't have to watch Breaking Bad guy anymore. I don't have to watch Tony Soprano. I can be the guy, right? And now they have all of the voice actors of anybody they want, right? This is such a legitimate art form that it will be recognized by the people who, quote unquote, judge legitimate art forms in the very near future. Because of that coming, embrace it. Like, let these kids.
I don't think they have a choice.
You don't. That's what I'm saying.
You don't have a choice.
That's
not
why
going away.
That's why I say. Yeah, that's why I say the toothpaste is out of that tube. Yeah. It is headed that direction. Don't be Sisyphus pushing the.
These darn smartphones are ruining the kids. It's like I
they've
can't
ruined
wait for
the
this
kids.
Phase to go away.
They've done ruined whatever they're going to ruin. It's already here, right? So embrace the future that's going to harness that and aim it and weaponize it, right?
I thought stuff would have more of a. I kind of thought things would phase out. Like, you know, like we saw MySpace come through, and you know, it kind of like, you know, you're just going like, I was a part of the time where I was like, oh yeah, getting into it, and you're going like, dude, like, you know, you just put your music on here, and like you could you get like noticed, and it's like this is just awesome, and it's like, and then it gets phased out, gets booted out by like Facebook, and then because of that, I just kind of thought, well, then Facebook will eventually be pushed out by something else, and then it was just like. It just like more things came along, and but it really rooted pretty deeply where like I don't use Facebook, but I use Instagram, and then it's like, but it's like as
You're
far
part
as
of the
I know,
metaverse.
yeah, and it's like the connection there is like I'm still connected to it, even though I'm not active on that platform, but I use the other one of Instagram, and then there's been other ones that like I got in and got out, but they're still there, and then like they're creeping for like decade plus now, like how long, what was Facebook, like 2000, I feel like I remember
Whatever year it is, you'd be surprised that it's earlier than you think. I bet.
yeah. Well, because I mean, I know like what's happening before I got exposed.
Yeah,
to
you had to have
but-
like a school email address in order to even sign up at one point.
Yeah, like it was like definitely for a specific demographic.
Yeah.
And then like when it was being exposed to me, I was like, man, I'm trying to get off of this stuff, man. I'm tired of even wasting my time on MySpace. I don't need another one. You're like, it is a lot cleaner looking though, and it's like, wow. It's just like all the cool people, and like it's like I could be on there. I'm like, I'll get on there, and then like I remember like trying to talk Randy into using it, and like she didn't have one, and she was like reluctant, and then it's like, and then in hindsight, I just remember just feeling like as if I like got her into drugs or something. I just like felt
you just
bad.
push
Like, I remember
social
back-
media addiction.
I just remember back when you weren't even using, and like now look at you, and it's like it's all because I showed you. And made
Now
you
you
get
just
it.
scroll.
Yeah.
Now you just scroll.
I've been kind of contemplating maybe utilizing that platform again because of the thing called Marketplace. Mm-hmm. My mom has like sold junk through Marketplace, and it seems to me like
It's my second place when I look for something on the internet.
What's the
to buy.
first?
That's still Craigslist.
That's what I say. My question is like, because I was doing Craigslist.
Even though Craigslist is a bit of a ghost town these days,
Yeah,
it's not as active as it once was.
The vibe,
I'm just used to it.
The vibe is like that. It like Craigslist is like it's like too scammy for a lot of people, so like, you have less people wanting to do it or something.
The real black and white of it to me is that Craigslist. By default, when I'm in like, I type Craigslist.com, it just takes me to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And then when I type in something, it just hits those Baltimore locations and then tells me if something is beyond that.
Nearby.
Right? Facebook Marketplace is real good. I know it's got all the filters and I could do this and I do, but the fact that it just defaults to just giving you stuff that can also be shipped to you that then tricks me. I like see like, oh, that bike I'm looking. Oh no, it's not just
Ohio.
Yeah. I'm like, oh no. That, and so that is just instantly enough for me to just like make Craigslist my default because I can just.
It's more regionally specific?
Yeah. If I'm looking for something on that level, I'm looking for something that I can pick up today. That I'm going to pay cash. And I'm just going to go grab it. If I want it shipped, there's an entire internet of other options.
It feels too like when I've like in the later years here of like combing on like Craigslist, it's oftentimes for like looking for like a deal on some like old gear, gear like music kind of stuff.
Oh, it's Craigslist and those things are perfect for that because it's like the quick attention span stuff.
Yeah.
So like music gear or exercise equipment or anything that is sort of hobby of the month type thing is the best place for Craigslist and stuff because it really is like if you're on there, people are giving up piano lessons by the day. Yeah.
I'm like so used to the Eastern Shore, like that searching there where like it does like Delaware and the Delmarva basically.
Oh, you got a sweet spot up here.
Yeah, that's like I was gonna say. It was like with down there, it's like such a like desert down there for like cool gear because you're just going like just thinking about like the further you get out to the coast, you just have more transient populations of like where like. Back when I was up here, it would have like mostly been, a lot of Baltimore stuff.
Yeah.
And Baltimore as being a city, you've got, culture that's like investing into
it's a numbers game.
Goods like that where you're just like, you could get on there. However, it's also like kind of like, whatever they're selling, that's cool or whatever they're selling. It's almost like eBay prices where it's like, they're aware of the value
and
of
they
that
can
stuff.
get that price because it's
you're not going
the
to
market. Get
like a awesome piece of gear that's worth $250 for $50.
You have to look at it as like another used marketplace on the level of like, I don't know if I'm going to get the deal of the millennium, but I will probably find something I'm interested in the budget. I can at least punch in the budget.
Yeah. I
also,
can drive and impulsively get it today.
yeah, and also sometimes I can wheel and deal.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're willing to work on it. Jesus, I should have known better than to.
Last time I checked, I don't know, it's probably been like 5 minutes or something, but it was like 41, almost 42 minutes.
Oh, damn.
And I have...
I haven't even brought up the thing I want to talk about to you.
I mean, like, that's what I mean, like, being prepared with topics and stuff, it's like, I just, like, my gut was like, it'll be easy to, like, just bullshit for, like, as long as we want to. And honestly, I'd cap it at, like, 2 hours, a minimum of 1 hour, so that's sort of, like, my idea. So, yeah, like, I feel like a 2-hour thing, you know, could be pretty long, but at the same time, it's like, I think, at least from my own personal experience, you know, I digest long format stuff, and not always in one sitting, but
No.
you know,
You probably shouldn't.
yeah. I mean, like I've had it like where I'm only going like on, I'd say, a drive, like going to the Eastern Shore. It's you know 3.5, 4 hours.
My favorite podcasts are the ones where I can get cozy and just settle in for a couple hours. A lot of times I prefer it that way. Sometimes if I have a long drive and I know that the episode is maybe longer than that, I get excited to like leave whatever I'm doing to be like, oh, I can conclude whatever it was I was listening to on the way here.
It's like cozying up with a good book.
Yeah. Sometimes it is. Just finished the Anthony Bourdain book. His first one, the one that sort of made him famous.
What's that one called?
Kitchen Confidential.
I hear his name come up from time to time, and it's always like it's like Anthony Bourdain is cool. You know, like it's like
You know what?
anything that like he said or did, it's always associated with like a reference where it's like, you know, it's cool. You know,
I'm
like,
gonna co-sign.
yeah. I've the amount that I've digested in my lifetime of his name and what he's associated with often is just like memories of just like.
A cool guy doing
yeah.
cool things.
When they're like, I'm just picturing him on a 4-wheeler and like flipping a 4-wheeler on a sand dune in like one of those like shows.
Oh, I don't know that.
I think there was like one episode where he was just like riding
sure.
a 4-wheeler and he like rolled it or something out in like a sand dune, and when he got up and brushed it off, and you're just like, man, this guy is just like, look at him, he's fucking surviving ATV crashes on camera. I mean, like,
It's cool. It was cool because
life.
It's cool because he has one of those like. What I think is so neat about him is the later life fame. Not later life fame, but you know, he wasn't famous until he was like well an adult. You know, he was like already had worked and already lived a life. Writes a book. People like writes maybe an article. I think maybe like he was like living in New York. Writes an article maybe for the New York Times or something. Maybe I'm screwing this up, but writes an article. Somebody reads his article and says, write a book, pays him to write a book, and then the book comes out, becomes a bestseller. Then he gets TV and everything else. But he had already he was pulling on his experiences as a chef in New York City and wrote a book about like this entire life he had already lived of like drug addiction and being a chef in New York and what that is. Gives you advice. Like in the book, there are just chapters where he's just telling you to buy kitchen knives and shit like that. Like it's
These are the good ones.
Yeah, like good, like practical information, and then also just like pulling back the curtain on like this is what this life is like. It's great. It's a wild. I really recommend the audiobook version because it's in his voice, so you get to hear him tell stories.
That's how you gotta do it.
Master story. He's a master storyteller.
Hearing the author's voice.
Yeah, yeah. And he's got a very
way to really feel what they're saying.
I can't recommend that Kitchen Confidential enough. It's a wild ride. It's wild because like I feel like I was set up. This is gonna sound weird, but I feel like I was set up for like the secrets he was gonna be telling me to be like things that were gonna like turn me off against like eating in public and food stuff, but it's not that. Those aren't like the secrets. It isn't like when he's like talking about it, it's not like oh yeah, nobody washes their hands, or it's not stuff like that. It's literally just like these like stories of just like, oh, these are groups of people that are kind of outsiders and the kind of trouble that they get in, and anecdotes of the types of characters that are often attracted to kitchen life. It's
So
like those types of
drug stories?
drugs and sex and stuff like that. Like the sort of like maybe more interpersonal internal workings of a kitchen, unless like, yeah, I went into it thinking like, oh, am I going to really, as a slight germaphobe, is this book going to like just like turn me off to like eating out in public? But it's not that. It was literally just like, oh, this like bride like slept with one of the caterers. Like it's like soapy, dishy stuff like that. When it goes there, or his
Chapter
own
4. Do you know if you boil noodles long enough, any hair that falls into it dissolves?
Yeah.
So
like,
don't worry about it when you go out to a restaurant and get pasta.
yeah. Or oh, it's a little sweat in your food, isn't it? And we all are sweating in your. It's not even like that.
The hand soap dispenser in the employee's bathroom is out usually.
yeah.
Like what?
We haven't bought soap in 3 years. Yeah. No, it's not that.
Hot water does it.
He does give you some like some sound advice on like. Again, this has no application to me because I'm not on this level, but of like the best times to maybe go to seafood restaurants if you want the freshest seafood, because he knows the schedule of the fish markets. It's like that stuff. Like he'll tell you like, oh, don't have the whatever brunch on a Monday because it's Fridays, whatever. It's like he'll tell you that stuff, the sort of those secrets of the restaurant biz, or the like, we don't do this here because of that. We don't fill in the blank of this because of the fill in the blank of that. He'll like do that type of stuff. Anyway, listen to the book. It's good. I highly recommend anything. And it's a bummer he's not with us.
I feel like that kind of stuff could like kind of like in a way like be like you could be vicariously living through them when you like feel like it's like I probably never experience life in
that's
that
the
way.
beauty of the show.
Like I'm not going to be traveling and eating at restaurants to this degree probably ever, no matter what. And it's
Yeah,
like,
a lot of that book is stuff that is like above my pay grade.
I'd like to,
Yeah.
but I have no way to even see that.
Yeah.
It's like it ain't kind of like working class income. You just like be having to expend so much to make that happen, and your expectations would be very fragile. Where you could feel like like this is like if you're. Well, I mean, he's going through all that like single or something. So just the responsibilities and the wildness of all that would be like so much more dynamic. Where like if you're like you got like a family or something, you're going like we're eating at TGI Fridays and the kids are excited about the potato skins.
His journey begins sort of through his family experience with food. Having he had super foodie parents. I believe he lived in France as a child for a little while at least. And they were going out. At one point he tells a story about literally just like him and his brother being left in the car. Like they were
the good old days, man. You leave your kids in the car when you could do your errands.
And not even the errands. It's just like to literally go eat at a restaurant that like it's like your kids are going to embarrass you at because it's like high class food and these kids don't get it yet.
Oh snap! That's the wild.
And he tells a story like that, like being left in the car, and then I believe he has like an introduction with like I believe it's like a maybe an oyster. I think he tells a story about having an oyster for the first time, and that was like his great food awakening. Was like sort of being challenged, like no kid's gonna eat this and like this. I'll be the kid that does that. And
it looks like a loogie in a dirty shell.
I've never done it, and he does it, and from that point on, his life has changed because then he becomes the guy that like can eat food, weird food, and it gets a stomach for different foods or whatever. But I've talked way too long about it. Like, I can't sum up the man. You did it best earlier when you said he's just associated with cool. Yeah. Everything that I just said is just like, just forget everything I said. Yeah. Everything just associates with cool. Check out all of the stuff that he did. That book is very cool. I'm bummed that it took me this long to actually get around to it as somebody that has known who he is for 20 years to finally be like, oh, damn, this guy was cooler than I thought he was. He was actually like, he had different facets to his coolness. He was a film buff, constantly referencing cool movies in those shows, like deep cut stuff. Actually traveled through some of his travel shows based on places from his favorite movies. Like goes to like where some of the stuff was filmed for Apocalypse Now because he's obsessed with Apocalypse Now. So makes that part of his journey. big music fan. He was always referencing. That book is filled with cool references to music and bands. He had good taste in all that stuff.
What kind of music was he listening to?
He references the Dead Boys.
Oh, okay.
Which is cool. Mark Lanigan did the theme song for one of his TV shows. And he was like a fan of him. Actually, Lanigan shows up in an episode, very sad episode since both are gone now. But the two of them sort of like chit-chatting on life.
He only had like one. He only had a show, right?
I think he had two. He had
no borders or no boundaries, no limits, or
no boundaries, right?
It was like Netflix. I feel like is when I was watching it. Netflix through a Wii, like a decade ago.
See, I'm bad with the titles of. But the first one was. What is that first one called? It's real like real early 2000s-y like HBO or Cinemax vibe.
Oh yeah,
it's got like that kind of grainy
premium content.
Yeah, it's got that. And it's called like A Cook's Journey. Again, I'm sort of I'm a newcomer to all things Bourdain, so the titles of things, which I've never been good with, even the things that I'm obsessive over, titles have never like sat with me. It's weird. They bounce off my forehead. I've never been able to like, even my favorite bands and things, sometimes if you were to ask me to name the song, I'd just tell you the chorus line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if it had a title that was different.
There's an art to the naming of things, and I think you can have a great name for something, but like it could be completely inept in the department of being memorable, you know?
Sure.
Like you can have something that's like it's super concise and clear as to what that is a title for, of, and about, but also could fail to be memorable. But you could also have a title that you'll never forget. It's like burned in your head. And it's like I feel like some like, you know, your favorite bands and things like that, like Nirvana or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's like one word, the amount of syllables, you know,
yeah.
like it's like you'll never forget that band name. But then there's some bands and some like, you know, I don't know, maybe not band names, maybe more down to the level of like the albums or whatever.
Well, band names used to be a lot more generic. They weren't as thought about. They just needed to represent whatever was the packaging for a while. You know what I mean? So you got the thes. Yeah. When it was less cared about.
They took all the good ones up, you know. You can't do it now. Like,
yeah, they even went to the. They even had the double up. They even went away from words. You know, that chick is just like symbols. Yeah. They even just went away from the word.
Nick Geppert told me about a band. I guess it was like local around Baltimore. Maybe they were touring or something, but it was just like, I think he suggested checking out the Beatles. And I was like, huh? And it was like the Beatles, and I was thinking like it's like spelled the same way, and just going like, this is pretty. In one way, you'd be like, that's stupid, and you're going like, that's pretty cool actually. You could take it to the level now where you could just like completely say the same name, and it's like it makes sense, or at least it clicks for me to being.
I love the idea.
I like this.
I love the idea that they took it one step further. That people were just like when the Replacements did Let It Be, that was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And then this band's like, we're going to take it one step further. Not only are we going to name it after a Beatles record, we're just going to name the band the same name.
Yeah,
I've seen it on flyers. I don't know anything about them, but I've confusingly seen that on modern flyers and gone, oh, and got the joke or got what was going on there.
Yeah, I have an appreciation for this because it's obvious you wouldn't just name your band after a band that's already existed. That's not cool. But it's like you named your band the Beatles.
All bets are off now.
Yeah.
You can. I love it. Like you can name your band or your music project anything or anyone or anything you want. It's like the music itself, and a lot of times it still does represent the music, as abstract as it is sometimes. You know what I mean? It can still represent the music itself, where the bands, again, it was just meant as a placeholder most of the time. I mean, the Beatles is a pun. You know what I mean? Like it's a joke. It's got the beat with an A.
Yeah,
like it's a pun itself. Yeah. It was like taken so not seriously.
I saw a clip last night. I watch YouTube every day. One of the channels I watch amongst a lot of stuff with gear and like technology, electronics, you know, and this one dude that's like V Westlife, and like he does a lot of just like weird like obscure gear and things, and like the video I was watching last night was like the world's largest LCD like 4x3 like
Oh, that was
television.
recommended to me.
Yeah,
that's
and-
in my algorithm.
yeah.
I've scanned through that, paused on that thumbnail for a second, and went like literally.
What are you
just,
going to get out of that? you
Yeah,
know? What am I going to get out of that?
My immediate thought was just like, cool. Who cares?
Yeah,
and
I know.
moved on.
So I played it. That's how I felt. But like I played it because it's like
But I still would watch it weirdly.
it fits into the category of entertainment that I don't want to just sit there and watch. But like I kind of want something going that might catch my attention with details occasionally.
yeah.
And he's got like a dry humor and stuff, and he's got a lot of cool videos. But like he has a lot of like content that he uses as the demonstration for different types of gear, like videos, like the VHS tapes, DVDs, or just like audio stuff that has like I guess. Some sort of ability to be, copyright clear,
sure.
and it'll just be these like promotional things. And like, I don't even know what this tape was or what, but there's in a clip in his video of that monitor video, it was like, Paul McCartney talking to some other dude, and he was saying about like having a song talk about like booger sugar, and then like another person was like, I can't believe you were talking about that, it's so controversial. And he's like, for him where he was at, that wasn't like a reference to something, it was just like some silly made up thing. And like being like people perceiving that he was like talking about something that had a different meaning, I guess, in other areas, like in the United States or something. Like, I don't know if that was like talking about like cocaine or
Oh
what.
yeah, booger sugar is cocaine, right?
Yeah, I was like, I that's what I assumed, but I was just sort of,
What else could that be referencing? Or is Paul just being Paul on this?
I don't know. I assumed it was just something. It was like he was like talking.
I feel like Paul McCartney has lived his life tongue.
He did
tongue.
this too. He did this in the video, like his bangish, longish hair, and it was like funny, just be like a grown man having a kind of haircut where they're like swinging
Where
their
he's
head
still
for that.
swinging his head.
Just swinging his head. He's got a little hair in his face.
It's dangerous at that age. You can't just swing your head around like
I know,
that.
you like slip a disc.
But I feel like he's lived his entire life with his tongue planted firmly in his cheek. I feel like there's an element of. I've always sort of suspected that Paul McCartney is a bit of a character played by Paul McCartney. Then he knows that he's Paul McCartney, and he knows that he's the wobble the head and do the, you know what I mean? Like that he's just like.
fucking Paul McCartney.
Yeah, he's Paul McCartney. Then he just sometimes has to be Paul McCartney, and I think that a lot of it is just like
Part of spell it like beat, like song beat.
Get it? Get
Or
it?
like the beatniks. It's the play on words.
Imagine how clever that was at 17 years old. Or
Oh
however old they
man, I
were.
mean, just like the girls buying the records and just being so excited about the cleverness and the cuteness and just like all
Perfect.
these things just click into them.
Perfect
just,
package.
Like buy and just be like, just like the this very like I feel like everyone's seen clips of like black and white crowds of like teenage girls like screaming. Like just this crowd of screaming girls, you're just like, wow, it's just like like for Beatles or
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of probably groups probably had some following like that, but it's just kind of like a weird, like very typical when you associate with that era and that thing. Like these days, is there anything that does that? Are there like musicians or artists today that generate crowds of screaming teenage girls?
I bet you that Harry Styles is on that level.
Maybe. I've not
believe.
seen footage though that is almost like a cultural
No. I don't know if
norm
it's
of, like,
yeah.
a reference.
Maybe maybe the K-pop.
Oh yeah.
I bet you maybe that's probably as close, like boy band stuff. I mean, the Beatles were a boy band.
We should. This could be like, imagine this thing, this sort of project, doing like out on the street, and like it's like going like, let's go to a K-pop concert, just like
How does this compare to Beatlemania?
yeah, that would be the basis.
Be the man on the street,
It's like
throw into
out
like
there,
other fans.
being like open minded and just trying to understand.
What's your favorite Ringo song?
yeah?
To like a BTS fan.
Have
I'm
you
an
ever seen?
Octopus's Garden fan. Here's an idea for something I'd like to do. I'm just going to put on the record. I really think it'd be really funny to do a Beatles cover record and to just do Ringo songs.
Like his solo like material hits?
No,
and
the
stuff?
stuff that he just did in the Beatles.
Oh, okay, like the ones that
A
you
Beatles, like just market it as a Beatles cover record. Just be like, Kevin sings the Beatles. like market it like that.
Just exclude all the
It's
primary.
only it's only specifically, and they don't have to be written by, because I want it to be a longer record.
What are like name a few tracks off the top of your head that because
Well, we got
I don't know if I
Octopus's
could.
Garden. We got Yellow Submarine.
So I can hear that one in my head. Octopus's Garden. I'm a little foggy on how that
We
would go.
got With a Little Help from My Friends.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. We got what's the cover song that he sings early on? Who sings that? Act Naturally.
I don't know if I.
They're gonna put me in the movies. Maybe Buck Owens. Feels like a Buck Owens song. Act Naturally. There's a handful. There's what's the one on White Record, that the White Album? White Record.
The White Record.
What's the one on the White Album that I really like is Don't Pass Me By.
I can.
It's got like that organ in it, that real funky drums. Dun 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 boom dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Where he talks about like a car crash. You were in a car crash and you lost your hair.
I'm a fan. Didn't he do a song
stupid
called
idea.
Photograph? But that was like his solo stuff.
Yeah. You might have to.
Photograph.
You might have to like.
Dive into some of his solo.
You might if you want to really flesh out the record. But I always listen to his songs, the ones he sings.
What would be the
Stoked.
Is that like sort of is the humor there that you're picking the Beatle that oftentimes is not,
And that I would never bring attention to it. Literally just put those songs on there.
yeah, these are Beatles songs.
Yeah, and they are.
Beatles songs. Yeah.
And then somebody would just go, actually,
And then she did all the Ringo songs.
the Yellow Submarine of it all, or Octopus's Garden, maybe Yellow Submarine, would give it away. Part of me would think, I haven't researched it enough, but I feel like I would love to get enough songs on there where you didn't have to do that one, because I feel like that tips your hand, because it's like the obvious Ringo song. It's the one that people make fun of.
It would go over a lot of people's heads because I feel like a lot of people are, even being a fan of the Beatles may not even be privy to like songwriting credits as to who. Like I can imagine some people just being like, that is a Beatles song. I know that, but they don't even know.
The Beatles fandom is something that has always been curious to me. It's because it's the most popular band of all time, arguably the greatest band of all time. Everybody has a favorite Beatles song, blah 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 blah. And I still think that there's so much of their stuff that people just don't know or pay attention to.
Oh yeah,
there's just so much of like their music and
you name songs they're probably super popular, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't even know if I can hear that song.
That's what I mean.
I've got the albums.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like that they still, that a band, it's wild that a band that famous, that sold that much, that everybody knows, that can talk about and stuff, still can have levels of fandom where you can still go deep, where you can still. Yeah, it's the Beatles. They only existed for a very short period of time. Only released a handful of albums in the grand scheme of things.
I like how they got in and they got out, and they didn't milk it for like a half a century, like some largely popular, well-known rock bands have done. And it's like kind of one of those things where it's like, it makes it a lot nicer to have it be so special, where it's like, you didn't see, well, I mean, they had like solo careers that went into the different decades and had went through, but like the fact that the band kind of like had like just this little era where it was like, it kind of makes it that much more exciting to like appreciate it, because it just was like wrung out and you got this concentration of something versus
there's that classic debate of the die young, leave a good looking corpse.
like a flame like burning out.
It kind of comes back to
whatever.
something you were talking about earlier. If you want to like bring some things together, the Nickelodeon concept of 3 seasons. They cap everything at 3 seasons, no matter their popularity. At least they did for a long time.
It was like Pete and Pete. 3 seasons.
Yeah, like all that stuff, because they really just kept churning through them. So like Hidden Temple and a lot of those like classic shows were 3-season things because they were just like
they start them. You think they were starting those out with that intent?
yeah, I believe so.
That's
believe
kind of
like
cool then, because then you kind
I
of.
think SpongeBob might have screwed that up. I think SpongeBob was the first. Maybe I have no idea, but it feels like to me like they were the first one that was like run for infinity.
SpongeBob came out. I washed my hands in Nickelodeon. I'm trying to get a girlfriend. I'm driving a car.
Oh yeah,
I'm out of this.
Yeah, I'm out of the SpongeBob world. Actually, I bailed a little earlier. I really did bail. I don't.
Cat Dog, Angry Beavers.
That's where I was going.
They're getting out there.
Yeah, that's where I Cat Dog, Angry Beaver. I even gave up on like I didn't really watch Real Monsters. I didn't watch.
I got a little Real Monsters in my time.
I even started. I feel like that was the beginning.
Hey Arnold was like.
Hey Arnold, I didn't watch any of.
Yeah,
So that
I was on the fence with Hey Arnold.
Yep, that's when I bailed. I really am the Ren and Stimpy, Doug,
Snick in its prime.
Rugrats, and then all the live action.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, then all the live action stuff. But then the Nicktoons that sort of continued into the late 90s,
Yeah.
I'd already bailed. Even if I was still watching Nickelodeon, I didn't care about. By SpongeBob, I was in high school, and I was like, nope, not for me.
We Randy being a little younger than me, she got a little bit more of that, and like we've indoctrinating our children into the cartoons that we enjoyed as kids. Some of these things have come into the picture, and like it's just like everyone agrees that this isn't really it didn't stick for her or me, even though I really wasn't into as much then. But you can almost tell the kids aren't really vibing with it either, and you're just going like, yeah, some of these it's just they weren't really floaters, but that's just what was on. And it wasn't like you had a lot of alternatives. No. It was like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon.
On that Iceberg, just hanging out.
Well, there's like what TBS would have some cartoons or
yeah,
something.
I mean, they did a pretty good job of like, we don't realize how good we had it, but we had options. But those options were sort of package selling sort of the same thing over and over again. I mean, maybe okay. So we had the illusion of options,
yeah,
where they were
options, man. It was like 2 channels of just like this is the kids' channels. Like it was like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and everything else was like
yeah. But I feel
you
like
had to wait for windows of time where
yeah, that's what I was saying. That there were all those pockets of like USA had kids programming, or the TNT, TBS also had those like pockets of, and they were all aimed right after school, so you had the ability to go like, oh, I'll watch a syndicated rerun of Gargoyles on TBS, or I'll go to Batman animated series, or I'll go to MPT and I'll watch Carmen Sandiego, or like watch something
Wishbone,
some educational something or other.
Yeah, Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah. So you had some you did have some avenue. You don't have the internet. Where you can literally just again find your kink and hang out there.
I want to watch 5 episodes in a row of this thing that I
which I don't think is a bad thing in this world of ever darkening, to be able to surround yourself with the thing that brings you joy.
I get kind of skeptical of like, you know, the effects on your brain of like being able to compulsively indulge into something when the access is that easy, and then like that behavior can be like you practice something, and like how that can like jump over into other facets of your life, you know? And it's like, because it's so easy to indulge in that thing, if you I realize it and you stop at doing that you end up maybe just probably jumping over to another track to fill the void. Like you stop doing one thing compulsively, and then you just end up filling that compulsive practice with some other thing. Like I stopped doing this, and now I'm doing like in the like phases where I take a break from like using like Instagram. It's different this time. This chapter changed my life, but in the past I recognized like, man, like when I stopped just checking Instagram and stuff, I just started checking YouTube a whole lot more. Sure. And I was just like clicking refresh, or going clicking the YouTube button, so it gives me a whole new suggestion, and you're going like maybe this refresh I'll find that video that will be like, I want to add to my watch later. I'm going to crush it later on. It's going to inspire me, and I'm like, or just entertain me or whatever. And you're just like, man, like, oh man, like I doing this habitually, but I need to turn to something to fill the void that I've left by the other thing I was like.
I guess what I'm hoping is that we look at it that way because of just our point of view. I guess I'm hoping that the kids that are being exposed to it are looking at it as opportunity. I guess I really do hope that they are looking at it as a way to fill their heads with as much knowledge, to get their 10,000 hours in some other way. Like,
Yeah.
you had to put 10,000 hours into being a professional baseball player. Those people that do that get obsessed with that, and they stay there. You have to be obsessed with it in order to reach the levels you want to reach sometimes, right? And if a kid has an idea of something they want to do, they want to design video games, you got to put in your 10,000 hours. And how you doing it? It's not playing kickball.
Have you put 10,000 hours in anything in your life by this point?
Nope, I screwed it up.
What about music? I mean, like, and kind of like your music,
I'm one of those people that has
categorize all that stuff into a lump. Where
yeah. Okay. So so
10,000
10,000 hours into music in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I'll count that as all the stuff that goes into it though.
bands, listening.
Yeah. Listening. Again, I don't discount the influence of binging on all of that stuff having a positive effect on me, as then knowing the tricks of the trade, to then not having that's my school. That was my school. The same way that I look at the kids that will eventually win Academy Awards for video games, as that's their school. They're learning the building blocks. They're getting bored with it. They're learning it on a level where they move on. When you move on from it, a lot of times, hopefully, you're doing it because you're bored with that concept and you need to evolve. You need I've got that mastered. I can introduce crayons into my black and white drawings. I'm bored with the black and white. Now move on to the new thing. I can now add color to it. MySpace was my black and white drawings. Facebook is adding a little bit of color. I can now push other things on this. I can now... That's a weird comparison to make, but again,
well, just like this, jumping off from one thing and
being replaced by the new thing and learning the tricks and becoming bored with it, and okay, this is the limitations of that art form. Okay, how can we improve upon it? How can we do how can we blend? Genre died in the 90s. No such thing as that anymore. Music, movies, TV. You do what people. You be or who do whatever you want anymore, right? So again, that comes with that iceberg, is the death of all of that stuff. The death of those black and white, those categories.
It'd be hard almost. I feel like if you do music nowadays, if you were to try to put yourself into a genre, you'd be you'd be naming 6 genres to summarize your complexity and influence as to what you think you sound like.
Because
I'm alternative rock. You know?
Because it all died. Because Fred Durst decided to rap over a heavy metal song
for the nookie.
For the nookie, not to say that Fred Durst, but to give an example of this white rapper is the most popular rapper in the country. Oh, none of this stuff matters anymore. Heavy metal bands are being in every movie now. They at the same time that System of a Down and Korn are popular, Christina Aguilera is popular. The Backstreet Boys and NSYNC are selling the most CDs anybody had ever sold. All of that stuff is all just this big melting pot, and then they start getting together. TRL brings all these idiots all together. MTV brings all these people. Where again, you stayed on your radio station. You stayed. The MTV helped kill genre. And when all that died, all of this, the band names didn't matter. Who you are didn't matter. Those things that became popular because they were the anomaly for a long time are no longer the anomaly. It used to be Weird Al was the funny guy. The internet is just filled with idiots on YouTube making funny versions of
being
songs.
Funny and being in music. And kind of having a shtick through.
No, it was Queen Latifah was the outlier of women rap. Now they run rap.
Yeah.
Right? All of it. All of that stuff that was just these blips on the dot for a long time. In the late 90s, when all of it all came together, before we were in endless wars, before all of everything was dedicated to everything negative, we had this wonderful little blending of, not to say that there wasn't enough negative, because the 90s were filled with it, but again, we were still on our little iceberg during this time. So we could care that Carson Daly was talking about Britney Spears, talking about Kid Rock, talking about Fred Durst, talking about these people that had nothing in common, nothing to do with one another, that just 10 years earlier would have just been like people that you would see in passing at maybe an awards show.
Yeah.
Are now just like in bed together. Right, and then that
the drama.
Then that spawned an entire generation of people our age that now have kids that saw all of that come down. That are now raising kids in this world where it's like, do your thing, right? You put in your 10,000 hours. What is your 10,000 hours? I hope you figure it out young. I hope you don't just
squander aimlessly
through, but sometimes
all
they
the
are.
different avenues of interest, and you become like, maybe it just takes a lot longer. You have opportunities that previous generations wouldn't have had because
you have all the opportunities,
not having access to that stuff. But now that you have access to it, the difficulty is focusing.
Yeah.
But if you don't focus and you spread yourself out thin, it's not just like maybe necessarily like everything's just going to crash and burn into nothing, but it might just take 30 years for you to ripen into something that was built off of 30 years of being like,
but maybe
so spread out.
But maybe those 30 years you've been taken. And again, because genre doesn't exist, you really got into photography for a while, and you put in 1,000 hours, and then you really got into baseball cards, or baseball collectibles, and you put 1,000 hours of dedicating your mind to that research. And then at 30 years old,
you're Ken Burns.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. Where you can blend these things. So I feel like the attention span doesn't have to be there as long as you have an attention span where you're learning. As long as you have that umbrella of thirst for knowledge, then explore the avenues, figure out ways to blend those avenues, because you have because all bets are off. You can blend all the avenues now. Again, I always go back to video games as this thing that I don't think our parents and their parents all took seriously enough, because I feel like we're behind. Video games are where they need to be, and their response to them are behind. In my opinion, like the technology, it's insane. Video games are on a level that you take your eye off of them for a minute, you don't even know what they're doing anymore.
Shit, yeah, I know, man. I left off on a Wii, man. Now I'm going like, I understand now, like you could build a super computer where it's got like mad RAM and like super strong graphics cards or whatever, and you can like have a game where it's like, you gotta have like some like mad cooling on this whole operation, but you could be playing something that like a simulator where like it looks really sharp and realistic, where you're going like, wow, man, like you could really get immersed into that.
And think about the skills.
I don't even I'm just so ignorant to the modern state of it, but at the same time I could just be so easily pulled in by having access to something that I've seen just bits and pieces of through.
And think about the skills you learn.
Awesome looking.
Think about the skills you learn there. Like again, my parents and
credits are like movie credits and stuff with the amount of people that are on a team.
And that's only going to keep
work.
that's not moving the other way. These movies aren't going backwards with technology. They're just introducing more and more of it. More and more of these people. More and more of these.
Dad, I want to be a video game designer and make Minecraft video games. Son, come on. You need to go into video. You need to go into VCR repair and antenna installation.
Yeah.
Typewriter repair. Come on. Focus on the real things that are going to be sticking around.
Yeah, no. Think about like the kids that are building their computers to play these video games are putting in their 1,000 hours in multiple places. They're learning computer stuff, which again isn't going away. They're learning. Kids know what RAM is. Yeah, on such a I know that's a basic sentence, but I didn't until I was an adult.
ROM, what's the difference?
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
What are we talking
they
about?
know all of that stuff. They know brands that are titans in their field that I don't know what they are.
Man,
right?
Apple being like, I feel like some of these things you're just going like, I see through my kids are just going like they're like almost like brainwashing. Just like your kids are drawing Apple products or something, and you're just going like, where are you learning this from? It's like where are they getting to you at? And you're just going like, this stuff is, it's like maybe this is sort of insidious or something. The way they're indoctrinated into like these things where like the schools and what companies are giving, like we grew up with like what Gateway computers and stuff, like in like middle school. I felt like in elementary school we had Apple, like two E's probably. And total tangent here. There was a game I remember playing on these Apple computers. It was like a math game where you did like a problem and you'd get like a body part, and then you'd build this like weird monster with like, you could choose the different body parts. Like this arm did this, and at the end of it, it was almost like a rocket or something where it would just like blast off. And I'm like, this can't. I mean, I can't accept that it was like a culmination of dreams and it's all fake and that it never happened. I'm like, I'm pretty certain there's this game. It was like math game, and you built a monster or this weird creature, and it was like
like a Voltron.
Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, and it was almost like by solving the problems, you were enabled to get another like the part, and the success of all of it was that at the end it was like a complete figure.
I mean, that sounds real.
Yeah, I've like had to try googling it and just being like, it's just so disappointed.
Like you're like vague.
Yeah, and like not being like you try searching that in Google, and just like it's very, very frustrating. You're just like,
I made it to the second page. I gave up.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. It's like it must have just been a dream. It must not be real if I couldn't find it in 2 pages on Google searching out. But I'm like, I remember going to the computer lab, and it was all those Apple computers, you know, and like the little Apple logos got the color bars, and if the screens are black or
probably
grayish.
all just thrown into a giant dumpster.
Yeah, man.
Now
Epic
people,
guys like he's salvaging them and restoring them. And
now
stuff,
people are. It's so weird. The '90s were so good at telling you that this was going to be worth money, and this is the stuff you should hold on to.
Babies.
And then this is the disposable stuff.
Computers and
this is the tech. It's going to move, and it's going to move fast, and not realizing that
analog synthesizers, garbage.
That this stuff is so secular all the time. So they get rid of this stuff only to have it like creep. They should have known. They should have literally in the '90s. Those parents should have literally seen hula hoops and yo-yos and weird shit like that pop back into pop culture briefly and gone like, huh.
Yeah, I was thinking about yo-yos. I was like, I remember in middle school, like X-Brain, like what was the brand? I remember like I had like one. It was like I think it was like the X-Brain, but I remember the brand of it. But like
you have a Duncan.
That was it. Yeah, I remember there was like the whole yo-yo phase.
You get bullied if you didn't have
like
a Duncan.
They had like the butterfly one.
Yeah,
kind of like the wide in the middle part, and like just like kids like getting like taking the yo-yo out at school like before buses and stuff, and just like showing off.
It was a real thing. I think about all of those things that became these
walking the dog,
these like pop culture little blips of our childhood were all just these stupid simple things. They were the simplest versions of things.
Bop it. Or what was that one thing? A skip the way you like you put it on your ankle and you
skip it.
Skip it.
Yeah, it was skip it.
Yeah, skip it.
Where you had like it had the ring.
Yeah.
And it had the little thing around the ball that would rotate and count as you would. But I mean, like even like on a like even more simpler scale, the fact that the yo-yo, the hula hoop, Pogs, all of these things that were like technology was moving forward with video games and stuff, but there was still this Beanie Babies. There was still this like element of like kids being kids and simple things staying simple, which is wild that you still see today with fidget spinners, which is already a dated reference, and the little poppy jobby poppets and stuff. Is again, kids are always attracted to pet rock. They're forever kids will be attracted to like.
That's pretty stupid. I was gonna be like, man, those poppets are so stupid. I'm like, yeah, the pet rock was stupid.
No. It's just
like, what do you do with that? You're like,
what do you like?
Pet rock.
No, anybody that judges that stuff, like no, like at one point you were just putting brine shrimp into water.
That's cultivating life.
But I mean, like
I need to pop every little dimple in this silicone pad right now.
It's kids,
and then undo it and do it again, I guess.
Kids can just be like, so at the Pet Rock or Pogs, they can be entertained by technology will always grab some kids' attention. But
fucking yo-yo, man, that's skills, bro. You gotta do that. And you do tricks. Develop yourself.
The vocal majority of people are still going to be down on these simple versions of things.
Filling repetitive manual thingies.
In my opinion, if you see a kid spending 10,000 hours playing with those things, Those
They're
are the ones.
autistic.
Those are the ones I'm like. Those are the ones that I'm going. Let's find a hobby for these kids. Let's get their 10,000 hours doing something, right? Because popping these things ain't it. That ain't a skill you're adding.
There's
at
always
least,
seemed to-
at least the kids that are playing on an iPad, I hope they're doing something that is on some level. Even like I said, watching YouTube is learning how to YouTube. Just the simple, you can't learn how to make a movie by watching a movie. You can't do that. Right?
I don't know. I mean, you could like understand pacing and shots.
Yes.
And things like
But
that.
you can't, as like, that's not you.
It's pretty complex.
And it's not you.
Yeah.
Like, no, you need actors and you need the camera. Like, you can't know how. You can watch a YouTube video with one person and a camera, and it shows you everything you need to know to YouTube. So even just watching the videos, to me, and if it on a subconscious level is a kid seeing that, oh, when I click on this, it's the guy's name is Jason Weber. And it's one guy doing this stuff is enough of a subconscious thing in my mind that is that is a push forward. It's one more push forward for somebody. It's just the idea that YouTube is one of the few jobs that exists where you can watch it and know how to do it.
Yeah. Dad, I
can't
want to be a
watch
YouTuber.
I can't watch.
Whoa. It's not that easy. I mean,
It is.
you need a phone to do that.
Yeah. You need
Wait
an
a
internet
second.
connection.
Yeah.
No, there's no other job.
It's not the same barriers. Like you said with like watching a movie, it's like yeah, you're not going to figure out how to have access to like cameras that cost like half a mortgage or a luxury vehicle.
We're watching somebody cook.
Yeah.
Like, you can know how to do it. That doesn't mean you're going to do it and do it well.
Yeah, like, I don't have one of those nice fancy gas stoves.
Yeah, I don't have access to all this. No, you can watching YouTube as a kid, even if they don't understand it, they understand on some level that this is now like, oh, I can do this. I don't need TV. I don't need this is now. So just them watching it in my mind is like, oh, there's something that is. There are people that are either attracted to the
Watching other kids play video games for hours.
yeah,
That's kind of a strange thing, isn't it? Oh, 140, dude. We're creeping up to the 2 hour mark.
So the kids watching video games thing goes back to something I was saying earlier, which is that I don't think it's weird because I think that video games, this bold statement, video games right now have surpassed everything as the ultimate storytelling format. And even if you cut off one of those limbs, it's still as good, if not better, than any other storytelling format. Kids watching other kids play video games, they're getting the story. They're getting what the video game.
Isn't the story like, I mean, can it be like almost like not the same though, or where like the narrative is changed by the way that the player goes to the game?
Sure. And sometimes that's the appeal. I'm not a video game guy at all, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched a Red Dead Redemption video to see what happens if you did it differently. Just to be like, oh, I'm trying to play it a specific way, but what happens if you were to have done it that way and I don't want to screw it up? YouTube, I watch some guy do it. Or sometimes these games are smarter than I am. Do you know how many times I've had to go on YouTube to figure out how to get to the next part of the game? Literally, where I'll just watch somebody play it, zoom through, get to that. Oh, there's that room that I'm stuck in. Watch it and go, you have to jump on that? Which would have been damning as a kid. How many times do you give up on a video game when you're like, oh, I got to
I can't clear that jump.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Can't do it.
You don't have that anymore.
My skills suck at
So
the
there's a million
buttons.
reasons for it, but I really do, at the end of the day, really look at it as video game stories and the characters that they're developing and building these worlds and the graphics now in an increasingly dark world.
Would players of those games be like the exchange of like the actors are in the movies for the Academy Awards then? It's almost like, would it just be like the top tier ends up being like these individuals who play really well and cultivated a really good story, if it's so unique where there's all these different ways that they could succeed to the end of the game? If I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of talking about shit I don't know anything about, but like
What I meant by the award thing is they're going to have to develop categories for best vocal acting in a video game, best writing in a video game. I don't mean to put best vocal acting against Daniel Day-Lewis and let them hammer it out.
Concept development is a category.
The Grammys do it. The Grammys have all the little subcategories. Best whatever by whatever, right? The Academy Awards, there's already video game awards, but again, that exists in a little echo chamber, its own little bubble where people on the outside are not forced to take it seriously because it has its own little thing. Oh, it has its own little awards. The same way that you're like, oh, they won an MTV award and never took the music video seriously as an art form until recently. Now there's best short form video you can win a Grammy for. You can do that type of thing, right? They're going to have to do video game stuff and force the world to sort of take it seriously because some of the best work is being done there. You get to live with those characters. If it takes, think about it. I play, just an example of a game, if it's 20 hours to complete the mission, the story mode, that's longer time than you spend. How many on-screen minutes are you with Jack Skellington? If you were to add them up, like how many minutes of screen time do you spend with your buddy?
Is that Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah. You just mentioned it earlier. But in an hour and 20-minute long video,
a smaller fraction than you probably would think if you maybe consolidate it. What like, I don't know. He's the main character.
He's the main character.
Okay, but so he's in there a good bit, like.
And it's from his point of view. But I bet you it's an hour at the most. That is at the most of an hour and 20 that you spend with somebody that you now see as inflatable for an hour's worth of content. You see this shit forever. You'll see Jack Skellington for 1 hour's worth of content. Do you know how many hours I've spent with Nathan Drake, the protagonist of the Uncharted ones? 4 games of multiple. He's one of my all-time favorite fictional characters. Movies, music, television, because I've spent so much more time with this guy, more than if you were to add up screen time on a couple seasons of television. I spend more time with some of these characters than they've spent with their Game of Thrones characters. You know what I mean? You spend more time. You make their decisions. You get to hear you directly influence their life, in a sense, their artificial life or whatever. And then to get the voice acting and the writing that keeps you coming back for that amount of hours, to keep you engaged, to sell you a sequel, to sell you the same game again, because they just remaster these games and put them right back out. That's a popular thing right now, is the remaster.
What do they do with a remaster?
They're just taking the older games and making them,
adding some new elements or something.
Yeah, they're like
Vice City 5 or something.
No, not even that. Not even that. They just. If the game came out on PlayStation 3 and it was blocky as all hell, it's now on PlayStation 5 and looks like You and Me, but it's the same game.
I need Twisted Metal. I need Jet Moto 2.
Twisted Metal has a TV show coming, so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that and pop back up in the zeitgeist here soon.
There's like a clown or something in there.
I've always said that I thought that one was pretty wild, that it hasn't popped back up. It feels like it's it feels like it's made for kids. Love car stuff still. Car video games are always still popular.
Resident Evil, that created a whole movie franchise and stuff.
Exactly. And the games are a lot of times better than those movies.
Yeah,
that's another reason that the reputation of the video game movie not being as good as the video game, how that always is, because those video games are designed that. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You can't distill.
I've never seen the movies and just being like, it's like,
still that way.
It's pretty gnarly, but I was so shook by the game Resident Evil 2 for PlayStation that I couldn't play it at nighttime, and I just got to the point where I just couldn't commit to just playing this game, and I was like, I needed to return this game, and I bought it at Walmart, and there's no returns. I remember getting my mom to rally with me on it, and was able to get an exchange there or do something where I was able to return it. But I just remember it was such a
that effect
thing. I was like,
can you think of that? Can you think of that? Can you think of that?
What the fuck is that?
That's power. If you're a video game designer and you made a game where kids don't even want to play this, they're getting spooked.
They're getting freaked out and having to return it because they're just too scared to play it enough.
Imagine John Carpenter hearing people are walking out halfway through your movie, man. They're too spooked. That'd be the biggest
Assault
pat
on
on
Precinct
your.
13 where the kid gets like, and then,
That's
like,
full on.
You're just going like, holy shit. I
No.
wouldn't be
Kid
expecting-
gets like murdered at an ice cream truck
Yeah,
in that
you're
movie,
just-
which is probably about as full on a concept
I'm
as
sure
you
you
can.
got some feedback on that.
Every time
There are mothers protesting your movie, probably.
every time I like think that is a thing that happened, I think like, is as full on as John Carpenter was, that might be his most full on moment.
That movie's crazy.
He went right there, and wild because I think that becomes the thing you know about that movie. It's like oh, what else happens? I have no idea.
There was like
it was a
weird-
remake in the mid aughties maybe with Ethan Hawke maybe.
Never saw the remake. I saw the original. Like it was like just in youth, like on a TV channel. You're just like, I don't even know what this is, and you just like watch it on a whim. Like I don't know. You know, I wouldn't make connections. Like, oh, this is the guy who made this movie. But then you watch it, and you're just going like, this is really weird. Like this whole like the vibe of it really left an impression where it was like seeing it one time, you're just like, that's a movie you'll remember.
Yeah.
And it's like, I could probably watch it again, and then you watch it again, and you're like, oh yeah, there was some really messed up stuff in this one. Yeah.
Now imagine if you would spend 40 hours with that kid.
Jeez. Character
As a
development,
video
going on
game, and you
adventures
controlled him,
playing,
yeah.
And then some dude in an ice cream truck comes by.
No, it's a wonderful world, which is why again I don't get so bummed out on the kids with the video game thing. My point of view is different than everybody else's. I think I try to stay optimistic with it. I say that this is the new frontier of storytelling, of technology, of graphics. It blends everything. It blends pop culture in a way that has never been done before. Soundtracks of video games are still huge. You still get bands that get popular, songs that get popular because they're used in a Madden or a 2K game. It's still
Gran Turismo, my brother playing that game, and that would have like rock songs in it and stuff, and it was like sort of like
look at the Tony Hawk
fuel his,
soundtrack.
like, interest in certain bands at times or
Look
whatever.
at those Tony Hawk soundtracks. Those are like if you were to make a soundtrack Hall of Fame, first ballot, like movies, anything, Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtracks.
I never played, so I don't even know. Like, what kind of stuff was playing on there?
Oh,
Just
the
like-
Tony
just
Hawk,
like pop punk of the 2000s.
Yes, it fit right in with the Warped Tour. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it's probably how kids got introduced.
It's how it is. It's an entire generation of the kids that are now the Machine Gun Kelly youth, who's pop punk, were parents that were raised on
guess that's what
again.
that is.
Parents that were raised on the big pop punk boom of the late 90s, early 2000s. That Tony Hawk Pro Skater was like one of the fingers of that glove. A huge finger of that glove, to the point again where I'm like, you think of the all-time great soundtracks of movies and stuff. If I'm making a Hall of Fame, I throw Tony Hawk in there first, one of the first group, the first class, if you will, into the soundtrack Hall of Fame. I don't know who else I put in there.
Yeah, I could definitely see scores of video games being a category and being very applicable. But it almost seems like you'd have like, well, in some categories it would be, it's like contemporary music being in as a playlist, and then other ways it would be like, well, think of like Resident Evil, how there's like the sound effects and all that
atmosphere.
stuff. Yeah,
a lot more atmosphere.
Like, there's got to be like, I could see a credit of being like
stuff, but a lot of honestly, a lot of music now. I mean,
there isn't like an awards for video games.
They have they have awards. They have like everything that exists has its own.
Yeah, these like classic ones like Emmys and all these like Academy Awards. I feel like all that stuff's like that, just like the deteriorated remnants of something that once was.
It
and
is,
like,
but
it's got to change.
It's still there is some not so much the Grammys, because I don't think
They
the
gotta
Grammys
like
were
get the
ever
new
there.
shit in,
I
new
feel
content, new media awards instead of like this old like film has just like almost become niche or something.
yeah,
Where,
and Academy Awards and stuff has always sort of presented like adding credibility to it, which is the only reason I sort of push it. I don't believe in judging art. Like the whole concept of awards is like, I know I've been talking about it forever, is that they're going to do it and they should do it and recognize it and stuff. Me personally, I don't understand it on that level, but I know that there are entire generations of people, and it's still my generation of people that are parents that I guess that also don't legitimize the format, and anything that I feel like legitimizes the art form of video game design, I think is a good thing, because I really do. I feel like it needs to be, when you talk about music, movies, television, video game, I feel like you got to throw it in there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's got to be. And then beyond that, sometimes I feel like it's good enough to be compared to, and compared to the best of. I feel like now the best video games can stand up against some of the best other pieces of art. They sell so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
The video games are outselling that views on
The immersion experience, I think, to them, it just like is almost beyond what those other formats can kind of put the audience into in some ways, because of the interaction with it. So that's like a very deep dimension to it, where you can like change the narrative, but there's still, I guess, like an overarching, some sort of plot.
Yeah, it's still aimed. You're still aimed. As crazy as they let you get, that's how good they are at it. And that's why there's a million names.
Looks like a picture of some shears. I got the black shears. I got the white shears.
There's a couple. There's a couple inside jokes here.
For Loco.
Remind me to tell you that later. It's an inside joke thing. That would be boring.
So we should probably like start thinking of like kind of like wrapping up dialogue. So we've got like 2 hours here, and this was I don't want to make it seem like it's easy, like anyone can do this. This is really hard, and like there's it just really like takes a lot of hard work to do this, and I found it to be very. For not having any real preparation in terms of topics or anything, it was pretty easy to just like freestyle on this. But how do you think like we would develop this for like a future like another episode or a thing like this? Like, I feel comfortable in this environment. I have no idea if the settings and things, if I have like both of us at the same level on the mics, who knows how our if we had headphones through the whole time, which a lot of podcasts do, that we would have had some understanding of like whether or not like, oh, I'm not speaking, oh, I'm drifting, or any of that stuff. So who knows?
I try to be conscious of that for like eating and scratching to at least pull the mic away.
Yeah,
at least have enough like mic etiquette to know.
But I don't know. I this approach in my mind was like, I don't want to say fail safe, but I just kind of thought like this.
And this is a great like just dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
This is a great like set up some cameras, set up some microphones, do it this way, see what sticks. I think if my only, I don't want to say a criticism, the only thing that I almost wish we had a second camera. I'm just gonna spend your money. I almost wish we had a second. I wish we were doing something.
Yeah.
Part of me almost was like, the entire time we were sitting here, this is going to sound lame, I pictured a puzzle.
So this is a puzzle table, dude.
I pictured us like having...
This is a puzzle table.
I pictured us kind of having a conversation around, and I kept wanting to like grab props.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when we were talking the tapes and stuff, I kind of wanted to like... A
lot of podcasts will have like a monitor, and like references will be then pulled up, and that's when it's really nice to have like
laptops where you see people like...
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
And it's nice to have like another party that does that labor for you.
Yeah.
And then it's like dual screen where like you become picture in picture, and then the
Or
audience.
the person off camera, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Jonathan over there, producer Jonathan. That's why they have the producer off camera.
I like that, but I'm just sort of like
I don't know what I meant by it, but I was just spitballing that there were times where I wish I had a prop.
Yeah. Future developments. I've like kind of like also thought too of like, how this could be, like how I mentioned that the Killer Times Presents pilot episode was sort of like the first, and that was like a decade ago, but like that is a very intense project. It took years to make that happen. And I wasn't even juggling like parent schedule onto that. So like
try to keep it as streamlined and something that you want to do.
Yeah, and like that part of like this approach for me was like just how like hard it would be to fail at it because of how simple the formula would be. Where like I don't know if you want to talk about it captured, but like with the 90 and 90 like the music thing, like in participating in that, I feel like I'm daunted to just the idea of like I could make it and then not like the final product and then not want to like release it, and then that like I just ate up a whole window of effort and devotion. So I just would be like I could see myself like giving up halfway through it just being like, I don't think I can do this one, or like, I got to do a different song.
Well, here's an idea for you. That maybe this can mutate into maybe a blend. Spitballing here. What if, since you have such a mobile setup here, and hopefully we've got it, at least get it to a point where you're mastered. And then I was saying the prop element. What if you just blended the two and you just go everywhere?
That's what I was thinking, was like
you just
us
go
having like go
so
to
if
like some
go,
location
and then
and just be like, it'd be
maybe-
kind of cool just to see like, yeah.
And then do the trick, podcast host trick, which is to turn around and put the work on the guest, because it's a whole lot less, it's not overwhelming to you to have to do anything weekly. However, if you were to tell somebody, hey, you've got a month, I'll visit you, and in that month, we're going to do something, come up with something.
Yeah.
What if I had the puzzle?
Yeah.
Like, oh, come over and do the puzzle. And we'll talk these talks while we like build this puzzle.
I'm vibing with that, man. I'm vibing with that. That's what I'm thinking.
Kevin
Yeah.
Pratt's house, and he has like, oh,
He's got
Kevin
some
Pratt's
ideas.
watching wrestling.
Yeah.
And like,
He's got an idea.
yeah.
And we hash that out in some sort of way where we even like,
And the
do something.
conversation becomes the podcast, but the there's a hook that maybe exists on paper or in some sort of like promotional way of
Yeah.
like, oh, I'll watch. Oh, they're doing that. That seems interesting. Or watch these two idiots put together this impossible puzzle, and it's not about that. It'd be like, oh, the entire time we just have these philosophical conversations we've been having that can continuously be spurned upon. But then you don't have to do the research. I had another idea for podcasts. I'm just going to throw my ideas for podcasts on here because they're also, then you'll have a recorded version of them.
yeah, you're what is it? Yeah, it's being captured. So it's
Yeah.
like kind of like planting a seed, you know. It can motivate your own self if you say an idea out loud, capture it, and you put it on the internet. And all of a sudden, you're going like, "Well,
gotta do that."
I might be more apt to do that because I kind of like put it out there." You
Yeah,
know?
but what about just like, I had an idea, I won't go into all the details of it, but an idea for a podcast where you interview people about their history of music, their relationship with music, where I had it as like a timeline. So I tell you, you have a month time, come up with your first favorite band to your current favorite band. Tell me how you got to each one. It's not the same. You didn't discover New Kids on the Block at 5 years old, and at 35 you're still New Kids on the Block. Maybe you are. And if that's true, then tell me about that. Why that stayed that way. But what if New Kids on the Block led to Guns N' Roses, led to Blink-182 in the late 90s, led to Arcade Fire, and then currently you love whatever, Lizzo is your favorite. I want to know that.
Yeah.
And as a host, I don't got to know any. I can show up.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like I could
Give the homework.
yeah, and like be able to sit there and like, you know, with the person sort of pre-gaming, having a sort of a structure there, but then also being able, in my shoes, sort of, you know, hosting or something like that, like to be able to like prime them through questions
Yeah.
that can.
You'll have a list of questions that spawn these things. I already like had that thought out. Like I want to know your age. That'd be like one of the first questions. How old are you? Do you have any brothers or sisters? That's huge.
Yeah, influences.
Yeah, what are
or-
your influences? What age did you get MTV? Like, what age do you remember, like, oh, we got cable? Was it always there? You know what I mean? Like, those would be the questions that would be sort of my general, like I've got these printed off. I can hit these same 20 questions that keep things moving. People like to talk about themselves. People like talking about their experiences. So, again, you're just pushing it on other
Give
people.
them a question. It's like, I can answer that. I can tell you. It was
Yeah.
oh, we only had cable for these years. I mean, like when that's when I watched a lot of MTV2
and
or
that
something.
will just move you.
That's when I saw this band, and then I went to the store and got that record, and then it's like it's one of my favorite records. You know?
Yeah. So like I've had this idea for that. And a podcast where we just talk about somebody's relationship with their favorite bands. Called it like My Favorite Band. Or actually, I thought about like naming it like favorite band of all time. Like just being facetious about it. Also had the idea of audio biography. Autobiography, except it's your audio biography, your life in music.
Audio autobiography?
Yeah, or just your
Audio, I guess I get it. So it's not as broad as the life, but like more of just
your music life.
Yeah.
Yeah, your audio biography. And then divided into chapters. You're the author of your own audio biography. Chapter 1, New Kids on the Block.
What was your earliest headphone memory?
Yeah.
Like the earliest experience you had with headphones?
Foam over, or they full ear?
They were
full
Hal
ear.
Leonard's, and it was in the side room in the kindergarten classroom at Manchester Elementary, and they played a little beep sound, and it was like identifying which ear it was in. You had to raise your hand.
Yeah.
Hal Leonard brand headphones.
I'd like to get
I have a pair.
hands on some of the
I have a pair.
Yeah, I see them
Hal
every
Leonard's.
once in a while.
They got like a volume knob. And stuff.
On it.
They switch for stereo mono, but the cord's cut on them because I needed the cord for some DIY, solution years ago. But I still actually converted the headphones for the poor man's like ear protection for like weed whacking. So I've got a pair of these Hal Leonards, man. I've put them through some action, man. They're like I weed whacked with them.
Here.
I use actual gear now that's like proper safety gear, but like they were there for me when I needed them for ear protection, but they're not that great. But I mean, they had them like the pads on them, so they kind of decrease the decibels of small engine noise to some degree.
Let me hold on. Search in.
Let me see what the time is on it. Oh, sick, dude. 2 hours and 3 minutes. I'm a real podcast.
I was going to pull up. Oh, okay. So it was called My Favorite Band That Year. That was what I was calling it when I wrote this. So I came up with this. Open document test.
Jonathan, edit this out so we don't have to watch
Yeah,
it.
Jonathan, you don't have to watch me with this? Oh, shit, I did it on a Windows. It's a Windows format. Trying to open up a Windows format on my Apple phone, and it's like telling me you can't do it right now. I had all my questions.
What are you using? Where are you using Windows at? I thought you had iMac.
I have a laptop
Oh.
that my MacBook doesn't have Wi-Fi, so anytime I need to laptop it, I use my old Windows one. So and that's the one I take to work. So I must have taken the laptop to work to come up with these questions and emailed myself it. But anyway, it's saved as like a Word file instead of whatever Apple thing. Anyway, I can't open it, but I have a list of questions. There's probably 25 of them that are those. When did you get MTV? How old are you? Along those lines. And I got like weirdly specific of like first concert, blah, 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 blah. Parents' favorite bands. Were your parents musically inclined? Blah, 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 blah. Like I said, I really did think about this one. I thought about, I'm a thinker, not a doer. And I think about a lot of podcasts. And I think of all these like concepts of these things that I would like to, even if it's a one-off, I think that I would listen to the right person tell me how they got from New Kids on the Block to Lizzo. How it's funny to, and it'll also just be fun to like what those years are.
Yeah.
You even probably become a pretty good guesser at like, oh, you liked Green Day in 1995 and you were 15.
Probably saw those videos on MTV and, saw the outfits and thought that looked cool.
Yep. And then I was
you were identifying with that.
And then I was in a friend's car with their older sister and they played a tape of Ween. And my life changed, and I went indie.
Who is this weird? What is this weirdo music?
Yeah, stuff like that. So that's the wild stuff. And again, as a host, you could just sit back, feed some questions.
I mean, I feel like, I could be, if you were asking me these questions, I could just ooze with like memories and details it'd be really exciting to be, I feel like in either position there, because it's like, one is like you're kind of cultivating something out of someone, and you don't. It almost feels like you don't have to do any of the work. You're just sort of like, what
you just have to
about it?
You just have to be the bus driver.
And then if you're the person that's answering it, it's like you might be like recalling something that you haven't actually thought about for so long, and it's like there's.
And you're prepared because I gave you homework, but you're not prepared for all those questions. I gave you to give the list.
Yeah.
To come up with a timeline. 1989 was when I heard. I keep using New Kids on the Block. It was the first music not that they were my favorite band. This is not true of me, but New Kids on the Block was the first music that somebody else that wasn't a family member turned me on to. It was like a friend in preschool riding home with them, and they played
Right Stuff.
and they played Right Stuff or whatever in their minivan on the ride home.
Oh.
And
They're probably that would have been like that them tape decks. That probably be that's like what people be listening to that stuff on back then, man. Them like little like paper cone speakers.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Let me get that bass up on that, man.
and
My brother had New Kids on the Block cassette tape, and I remember him like liking that.
yeah, see, and that would just be one of his little stops along his way. Again, and go with the whole. I feel like if you just kind of leaned into the whole idea of it being a book, it's a podcast, sure. But don't even call it a podcast. It's a book. So my favorite band that year or whatever. And as a host, you can be like, we're going to be talking to the author, like lean into like, the author of his autobiography, Brad Ryder. And then start from there. Like, what's chapter 1? Give me the foreword first. What do we need to know contextually of this, and maybe ask a couple of those questions and then move you into chapter 1 is blah 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 blah. That's an idea.
That's really exciting, man. I kind of just want to hear that now, and I feel like you could do that. Like, I mean, like our we have a lot of like mutual friends, but I feel like very like lucky to have such a network of people that I feel like I could reach out to and do just what we've done today with. But then also hearing your idea, how many of those people would be really just like I know I'd like to hear, that'd just be interesting to me with someone I never even met.
Think of the tangents.
Then also
it lends itself to tangents.
Yeah.
It lends itself to if you're talking to, at least within our circle of friends, you're talking to a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
And these things are going to go hand in hand. There's going to be the moment of, my musical life changed when I saw Basket Case, and all of a sudden I saw a guy playing guitar that looked like it could be me playing the guitar instead of Jimmy Page playing the guitar.
Yeah.
So like you'll have those moments too, where maybe that doesn't become your favorite band, but it again, I don't discredit what just like looking cool and doing stuff can be like that inspiration can be there. You can just see that little thing as a kid, and it's just I saw hyper colored videos, a guy playing the guitar this is actually true. This is the Basket Case video was a life-changing moment. It was the fork in the road. My life changed the minute I saw that video. Something clicked. Something was different about me.
Oh, when you said Basket Case, I thought you were talking about the movie. I was like, there's a guy in that playing guitar?
Oh, and what's
You're talking about Green Day. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like...
Oh, no, I'm talking about Belial, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm talking about Belial in his little basket.
That's a pretty...
It changed my life.
That's a pretty rad influence and very, very sensitive
there's
of
somebody
you to have been turned on by like a glimpse of a man playing guitar in a clip
in a movie, in a weird horror movie.
I can do that?
What if there's somebody on Earth that two's favorite things on Earth are Green Day and the movie Basket Case? There's one person amongst this 7.5 billion on Earth that
There's
can
probably
claim
more than one person.
Yeah, that can claim both basket cases.
I've never seen the first Basket Case. I have the second one on VHS.
Oh, really? Never saw the first one?
Yeah, and the second one's weird.
Yeah, the first one is, I don't want to say it's more straightforward, because I mean it's Basket Case, but the second one kind of like is on 11.
Yeah.
It really takes an already bizarre concept and just like...
I think it had like giant like people in like costumes like running around.
Yeah,
it
it
was
went
like,
full
oh,
on.
this isn't like actually scary. This is like weird.
It did the Evil Dead path of starting as like a horror movie and
Evil
then
Dead
moving
meets,
into
like, Garbage Pail Kids or whatever.
Yeah, then moving into the funny like those things can either be either terrifying or they look funny or both. And then you just lean into it, just make the funny parts funny and the scary parts scary. That's the idea. Oh man.
Well, I guess we should close it up after hitting the 2-hour mark. We're probably like 2 hours 15. I'm looking at the time. It's like 12:58, almost 1 o'clock. I'm kind of thinking about getting some food or something. Or maybe have an adventure if you're interested.
I can adventure.
All right. Well, if you've been watching this or listening or whatever way it happens to be, I appreciate your time, and y'all have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, shoot, it wasn't the microphone cable wasn't connected.